channel. Just waking you up this morning as the time hits 6 o'clock on this Wednesday, the 27th of March. You're tuned into, whether it's on radio or television, online or via your speaker. It's Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster, Breakfast on GB News.
Good to have your company. Here's what's leading the news this morning. Church conversion criticism. Home Office sources accuse the religion of undermining the asylum system after the Clapham chemical attacker was allowed to remain in Britain despite lying and failing a Christianity test.
A double departure for Rishi Sunak. The exit of two more ministers forces the Prime Minister into a mini reshuffle.
Yes, two well-respected ministers have stood down, causing Rishi Sunak yet another headache. And their replacements aren't everyone's cup of tea. Find out more with me very soon.
The Duke of Sussex dragged into the Diddy lawsuit.
Prince Harry's been named in the rap star's legal proceedings, alleging that Sean Diddy Coombs used his name to give his sex trafficking parties legitimacy.
Wales failed to secure a place at Euro 2024 after losing their playoff against Poland in a heartbreaking penalty shootout.
As hospitals give free vapes in a bid to help thousands quit smoking, we'll be asking, should they be provided to smokers free on the NHS? That's our debate later.
And are you being shortchanged in a new Easter egg shrinkflation? Some eggs cost 50% more this year, while others are just smaller.
And in the sport, penalties is the only way to go. Of course, heartbreak for Wales. More about that very shortly as they go out to Poland. They won't be at the Euros, but at least they get a summer holiday, maybe, looking on the bright side. England get a late draw against Belgium in their Tin kit. That's Belgium. And Scotland lose for the first time against Northern Ireland at Hampden for 50 years. And someone's going to be very happy about that.
There we've got heavy rain and showers in the forecast today, but some sunshine too. Find out all the weather details coming up in the programme soon.
Home Office sources have said the church runs the risk of undermining the integrity of the asylum system after it was revealed that the chemical attacker, Abdul Azedi, was allowed to stay in Britain by a judge who accepted he was a convert, despite concerns the sex offender was in fact telling lies.
Beggars belief seeing these documents for the first time. Immigration files published by the Home Office now show that Azedi was granted asylum after his application was backed by a Baptist church minister.
Well, we're joined now by broadcaster Paula London and immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson on this one. Paula, what do you feel when you hear this news today?
I'm not surprised. It's despicable. I remember not so long ago, the guy in Liverpool that tried to blow up the maternity hospital. He did that because he was upset because they didn't believe him when he pretended to be a convert. So many people are lying and they're used to judges believing them, having lawyers believing them, or lawyers often tell them what to say. And it's just disgusting. Something needs to change rapidly in this country because we have too many human rights lawyers, we have too many judges that all they seem to care about is the welfare of asylum seekers. They do not care about the safety of British people working taxpayers, British people. We come secondary, and whatever asylum seekers say, it needs to be taken as gospel. This has been going on for decades. Decades ago, we had lots of Albanians pretending to be Kosovan because there was a war in Kosovo. So they all rocked up, and then people are lying about their sexuality, their country of origin, their age, their name. They're lying, and then so many people are believing them. But it's the detriment to the safety of British people. Enough is enough now. Enough is enough. We're having 500 people a day now arriving by a dinghy. This can increase to 1,000 a day at some point.
So, Ivan, is it all
enough.
their idea, whether to be Kosovan or Christian, or is it people of your own profession who say, here's how you get through the door?
Well, first, I'd be interested to know whether Paul has actually read the judgment, because it was unusual for the court to release the judgment.
I'm not surprised you're making excuses for these men again. You have blood on your hands, lawyers like you. I really am sick. You always sticking up for these people. Even the man that tried to bomb a maternity hospital. Do you not think that's despicable? And you'll still have excuses for him.
I think I'll be very careful making live broadcast accusations.
No, I don't have to be very careful. You should be very careful.
Well, let me tell you about the judgment, because we want to look at what the court's considered. And what the court considers the evidence. That's what the court considers. The judge would have heard evidence from Ezidi, and although he found that some of it was not credible, on the whole, he found his evidence to be consistent. Now, that's one part of the evidence. The other part is the evidence provided by the church, letters confirming that he was a genuine convert. There's also evidence, photographic evidence, of Ezidi giving out leaflets. And
that's not evidence. For God's sake, that's a photograph. A lawyer should know that.
That's also evidence, a letter from the church confirming that he was a true convert. Yes. I think he would have been cross-examined both by the Home Office and the judge, Ezidi, on whether his evidence was credible. On the whole, they found it was. Now, what I find difficult is the church minister wasn't cross-examined, because and I've been in court where churches have provided letters. And on the whole, the judge will accept the letters as written. I think what we need to see is the ministers being brought to the court for them to be cross-examined on that evidence, because at the moment that's not happening.
Struck off as well.
Oh, well, OK, listen, Ivan, I'm just curious about whether you think that the judge's judgment in this case was good, given what we now know, what is now in the public domain, the fact that he'd had multiple applications rejected by the Home Office, he'd remained in this country illegally. He was also convicted in this country of not only sexual assault, but also of exposing himself, and he was put on the sex offenders register for life. And the church had expressed concerns that he had to be accompanied by a chaperone when attending their premises, and yet the judge still felt that his human rights entitled him to remain in the UK. On the balance of all of that, do you still think it was the correct judgment?
Well, I think the Home Office could have challenged that judgment if they wanted to, and the Home Office lawyers would have looked at that judgment to see, and you could only challenge on a point of law, not on the facts. So as long as the judge's judgment complied with the law, in terms of what's called the evidential burden, on the balance of probabilities, he found the judgment. They found the judgment safe. The Home Office didn't challenge it. Now, you asked me whether I found the judgment to be correct. Well, look, I wasn't there at the hearing. I didn't hear the cross-examination. It's very difficult for me to really answer that question.
But you're right, Ivan, from the point of view that if it's a point of law, it's a point of law, and our opinions sort of don't really come into it. But I'm interested in Paula's opinion right now. And here's what I think. I look at this and...
I'm a female. I worry about female safety in this country. He doesn't care about female safety.
Yeah.
I care. So I will always speak up for ladies that are worried about their safety.
But
and
Paula,
he thinks, oh, it's just a pound note.
So what you're saying, Paula, is sort of what I'm thinking this morning. The headline in the Daily Telegraph is "Churches Undermining the Asylum System." So you could look at this as the asylum system undermining churches, or the other way about. But my point is, what has your religion, or whoever your God is, what's that really got to do whether you can live in this country or not?
Well, the reason is Article 2 and Article 3 of the European Convention protects your right. That's the right to life and right not to face persecution and torture. So there's countries in the world where if you're an apostate, if you converted, then you ultimately could be sentenced to death.
Well, Britain isn't one of them. Britain isn't one of those countries. So what I'm trying to say...
It's just a loophole. It's a loophole. That's all it is.
Yeah. You hear Paula saying it's just a loophole, Ivan.
Well, it's the law. So are we going to send people who aren't converted
a lot
to
of legal aid
Christianity?
lawyers are getting rich because of that, and it's wrong.
Well, I'm not a legal aid lawyer, and I don't represent a single asylum seeker on legal aid. The point is, we've got to comply with the law. Now, I agree with Paula that someone like Azidi, on the face of it, seems like he was a horrible person to do that. I understand that, and I understand the emotions. But we have to consider the law and work within the confines of the law.
Well, how
and
about the guy in Liverpool that had a Quran in his bag and he pretended to be Christian when he was going to blow up the maternity hospital?
Well, as I've said, I think that the evidence of the church needs to be tested. At the moment, all we're getting is letters from ministers. Now, that's not good enough. I think that the ministers should be compelled to come to give evidence in the court so they themselves can be cross-examined. Now, are you saying that people don't pretend to be Christians? No doubt there are people like that out there. But
well, I'm
what
a
we've
real
got
Christian.
to do...
I pray every day. So using God's name in vain like this is disgusting as well, for one thing.
I thought Brexit was supposed to put an end to all of this, that you were to look at these European conventions and say, well, that doesn't suit us, that's not for us, so we'll not be applying that.
Well, Poland ignore it, so I don't know why we can't.
There's laws quite strong about people who commit criminal offences. So if you're convicted of a criminal offence which carries a sentence of more than 12 months, that's automatic deportation. The problem is the government has the law but is not enforcing it. We should deport people who have committed criminal offences. They should be deported.
Because of human rights lawyers.
OK, we're going to be talking to government representatives throughout the programme this morning on this. Ivan, thank you very much indeed for stating the case and pleading the argument against there. Paul, a final word. Just what should we be taking away from this today on the news agenda as we report this today? What should we be saying on behalf of the British population, British public out there?
We need to stop taking everything at face value. There are some genuine asylum seekers coming over, but a lot of people are coming over and they hate us and they're lying about their age, their country of origin, their nationality. They're pulling any trick they can to try to get their asylum granted. They're safe in France. They're not facing persecution. They can get asylum for free. They're coming over here because we've got human rights lawyers that will jump through hoops so they can get their asylum granted and skip the queue and get social housing above the British people. Stop believing all the lies that these asylum seekers are telling people.
Thank you both
ridiculous.
very much. Thank you both very, very much indeed. You'll certainly get people talking today and we'll gauge that reaction throughout the programme. Paula London and Ivan Sampson there.
It is fascinating when you hear some of the concerns over his dishonesty. Apparently the judge, his name is William O'Hanlon, was presented with evidence that included that he'd previously claimed to be a Shia Muslim but had worshipped as a Sunni Muslim for many years. There was an inconsistency about his original faith. Then he said his brother was shot and killed when the Taliban bombed his home in Afghanistan, but he previously claimed that had happened in a mosque. Then he said he was injured in a Taliban grenade blast, and a previous hearing was given a GP note saying that he had shrapnel injuries, but then a judge decided that had very little weight. And then he was unable, despite claiming to have converted to Christianity, to explain what the Old Testament was, and he believed that Jesus Christ featured in it and was unable to mention or come up with any Christian hymns. So there were serious questions about how authentic his conversion was. What's sad about this story for me, and I'd be interested to know if anyone agrees in all of that, is the way the church is being attacked. Because I think if you look at the church, they will always take on the case.
This is a branch of the church. This is a Baptist.
Fine, but I think but it could be. I mean, the Archbishop of Canterbury would probably have done the same thing. Let's be honest, because the Christian message is the person at the lowest ebb, the person who's most hated in society, is there to be taken mercy on. But the point is, the judge saw this flimsy evidence, saw his conviction, and as far as I'm concerned, I think this is a failing of the asylum system and not of the church. Anyone agree or disagree? Let me know what you think about all of that. GB Views, GB News.
Very nice. But the church is completely irrelevant now in this day and age. It's completely irrelevant, and it shouldn't be part of anybody's system. And if they're going to be persecuted in Syria or whatever, they're not in Syria, they're in Britain. That shouldn't apply at all. I look at this, and on Instagram yesterday, I saw this piece. It was interesting. And it was a guy in the street, and he was stopping people, and he was saying, "Can we talk about the Lord Jesus Christ?" People flew by. What's your view on Jesus Christ? Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Everybody in this film absolutely freaked, panicked at the idea of having to justify Jesus or talk about Jesus.
I think that's sad as well.
Anyway, well, it may well be sad, but I'm just trying to say that the relevance of all of this sort of thing. I mean, listen, you couldn't have had more religion. I was dipped in religion coming out of my ears, basically. And the sad thing, the terribly sad thing is to watch churches closing down.
Absolutely.
Churches that, you know, I know people who were married in, buried in, you know, communion, all sorts of things. And they're closed.
I know.
They're closed. There just isn't the belief there anymore for them. So why are we making out that, you know, if you say, hallelujah, save me, Lord, that you get into this country? What a lot of rubbish. gbviews@gbnews.com. Let us know.
Right, we're talking about politics now. It was a double departure yesterday for the Prime Minister. 2 ministers quitting on the same day, within minutes, frankly. Armed Forces Minister James Heappey, probably the most high profile, as well as the Higher Education Minister Robert Halfon, both announcing that they're not only standing down as ministers, but won't run as MPs at the general election.
There you are. You see, this sort of story just leaves me dead.
Well, is it a knock? Is it a blow to the confidence in their Prime Minister? Is it an
they see
indication of
themselves
demise
on a
of the
sinking
party?
ship,
Which is the story?
And they're jumping ship. But who are they? Nobody has a clue who they are anyway. Let's go to Olivia Otley in our studio in London. There, tell us more.
Thank you for that introduction, Eamonn. Well, these were 2 very respected ministers. James Heappey is a former soldier. He's been the only armed forces minister since the last general election. He was actually praised by Labour on his departing day. Robert Halfon is seen as a champion of blue-collar conservatism. He's the man who's kept the fuel duty low for so many years. He was called by David Cameron the most expensive backbencher. He also introduced T-levels, equivalent to A-levels, which give more vocational skills. So these were 2 experienced and well-respected ministers. But as you say, Eamonn, they have stood aside, probably because they don't really want to go down with the ship. They've been in Parliament for a long time now. They're expecting the Conservatives to lose the next election, and they are stepping aside, along with 61 of their colleagues. More MPs are standing down in this election than in any election since 1997. Now, Rishi Sunak is scrabbling to fill their positions. He's got Nuz Ghani in, Alan Mack, a couple of old ministers who are back on the front benches again. And he has also replaced Lee Anderson with Jonathan Gullis. Now, Jonathan Gullis is very much like Lee Anderson in his outlook. He's a Red Wall MP. He's very critical of the metropolitan elite. He's used the phrase chai latte something like 7 times in Parliament, the only time that the phrase has ever got onto Hansard, while he criticises the metropolitan elite, as he puts it. Now, will he garner the same sort of respect in the Red Wall as Lee Anderson? That is what Rishi Sunak is hoping. But plenty of Rishi Sunak's colleagues are saying that the Prime Minister is now just scraping the barrel, and pretty much anyone who wants to be a minister at this point can have a go. It just shows what a low ebb the Conservative Party is at the beginning of this election year.
Olivia, keep your views coming in. Let us know what you think. Abdullah Zaidi, who we were talking about there, the guy who committed suicide, jumped off the bridge after beating, abusing the chemical attack on his partner. Kate says, where can the English seek asylum if we're trying to get out of this country? We're under attack in our own country, our culture, our standards of living, our history. Our women are unsafe. Children unsafe from predators on the streets. High crime rate. High crime rates are not even being attempted to be solved. The flag identity is a problem as well. Where can we go if we want to get out of this country? Where do you think Brits go? Where do Brits go? Canada?
Costa del Sol.
Well, can they go there now?
I don't know. Yeah, probably for 90 days. 90 days or something like that, post-Brexit.
I hear you can pay money. You can basically buy a house, you know, like whatever it is, 300,000 quid or something, and they'll take you in Portugal and Spain. They'll take you in China and Thailand. as well if you
China.
invest in the country.
No, thanks. I'll stay here, thanks, in my green and pleasant land. Eileen, the church should not be allowed to be involved in illegal migration. They should be looking after the flock that are their local communities.
Well, that's what I tend to think as well. It's funny, you know, we went to Africa to convert people, you know, as Christians. That's what they did. They went to Africa to convert people. Now, of course, I find it very strange that you've got a lot of African ministers in British churches. It's now reversed, and of course, we're trying to get converts into this country. But the church and the idea of the church is sad. Don't take any joy in saying this, but it is wrecked.
It is, but,
wrecked.
oh gosh, I mean, I could talk a lot about this topic, but I honestly think, what have we replaced it with? What have we, as a society, replaced Christianity, which gave us so many of our fundamental laws, our outlook on everything? We talked yesterday about the lack of volunteers. We talk about duty. We talk about doing the right thing. We talk about fidelity. I honestly believe, you know, whether you like or loathe Christianity, losing it, I think, has been replaced in some large way by narcissism, mobile phones, people filming themselves, talking about themselves, going out for themselves. I think it's really sad. Personally.
Let's have a little look at what else is happening news-wise. 6 workers presumed dead after that bridge collapse in Baltimore yesterday. A cargo ship colliding with the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which there was the result of that. The Coast Guard and Maryland State Police have said that active search and rescue operations have been suspended until weather conditions improve.
Satisfaction with the NHS has fallen to a record low. Only 1 in 4 people say they're happy with the service. Experts claim that the public feel like they're stuck in a toxic relationship with the NHS. The annual report by the King's Fund and the Nuffield Trust think tanks found that public confidence in the health service is at its lowest since polling began in 1983.
A former British Museum curator has been ordered by the High Court to return stolen artefacts within 4 weeks. He's Dr. Peter Higgs. He was dismissed from his conduct. He faces allegations of theft and damage for over 1,800 historical items. These are accusations that the doctor denies. The court also ordered Mr. Higgs to disclose records from his eBay and PayPal accounts following claims he listed hundreds of these stolen items for sale online. Well, you know, we're talking about, you know, where Brits want to go if they want to escape the way this country is going, where they would seek asylum, where would they be allowed into. A lot of people head away for Easter. So many people head away for Easter, I never do. What a nightmare. Being stuck in
going anywhere in
Gatwick
these when it's school
Manchester
holidays is pretty
Airport.
grim.
Yeah.
Apparently 18.5 million drivers are going to be on the roads on Saturday.
Well, I won't be one of them.
Over the bank holiday. Do you know what? I've been contemplating a little trip up to Scotland and looking at the train versus the plane versus driving. And my conclusion is I'm not sure I'm going to do it at all. Anyway, let's get the thoughts this morning of travel expert Simon Calder. He can tell us about statistics. 2.3 million people expected to travel over the weekend. Good to see you, Simon. Are you one of those? What's it going to be like out there?
I'm certainly not going to try and travel anywhere. It's going to be pretty horrible. Yes, let me tell you about record numbers of passengers at the airports. I'm talking to Bristol, to Newcastle, to Edinburgh Airport. They say, yep, it's going to be our busiest Easter ever. Incredibly busy, of course, at the other major airports, including London Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, Luton and Manchester Airport. And on the roads, it's going to be absolutely horrible. And the RAC has predicted exactly when you are likely to be finding the worst congestion. It's going to be, well, Thursday is going to be absolutely horrible. That's because you've got a large number of people all setting off at the end of the school term for an awful lot of people, and they are merging, well, they're trying to, with all the commuters and normal weekday traffic. That's also going to rumble on into the weekend. You basically don't want to be anywhere near the western side of the M25. That's anywhere around from the Gatwick turn off the M23 all the way around to the M1 turn off. That's going to be pretty grim. And then some absolute spots to avoid, particularly Good Friday. going to be on the M5 heading south from Bristol towards Taunton. Awful lot of people, of course, will be setting off to go to the West Country from the Midlands, from the north of England, and also looking more widely further north. The M6 is going to be very tricky, particularly at that place north of Preston, where everybody turns off to go to the lovely Lake District. So wherever you are going, the advice is set off early or set off late.
My friend, I know you will echo what I'm about to say here, just respect for people who have to work in the airline industry and whatever it is, on the ground or in the air. We didn't even mention trains, because I'm not even sure trains are running. I think there is going to be disruption again. There would be disruption even if they were running, but what's the latest on trains that you're hearing?
Well, yeah, I'm speaking to you from Manchester. I was 40 minutes late coming up. Nobody, apparently there's a swan on the line. So, yeah, things getting, not getting any easier, but we do know that there will not be any Avanti West Coast trains running on any day from Good Friday through to Easter Monday on the crucial stretch between Milton Keynes Central and London Euston. They're doing a lot of work on the line, and that is one of the key lines, of course, going in and out. And that might well be by getting up to Scotland is proving so tricky. Lots of pressure on the East Coast main line from Anglo-Scottish travellers, and also the Midland main line going up from London St Pancras to Sheffield as people try and find a diversion route. East Anglia, it's now pretty traditional that on any bank holiday weekend you're not going to be able to travel without a bus replacement service between Norwich, Ipswich, Colchester or Southend and Central
I hate a bus
London.
replacement service. Nothing worse.
And many other parts of the UK. There are hundreds of network rail projects. They say, yeah, we do this work because there aren't that many other people travelling. But
well, if that hasn't put us all
Yeah, exactly. You're really selling it, Simon.
No, and quite right. Sound advice, mate. Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Really appreciate it, and have a good Easter, mate.
Maybe it'd be good weather to stay at home.
No, hold on.
Hold on.
Yeah. The thing about Easter is I intend to stay home and watch box sets or whatever the heck it is, just turn into a couch potato. So basically this morning, if you would like to recommend on any channel, I watched the thing on Netflix. The trouble is there's so many series starring not so many famous people that you can't remember what they're called or what station they were on or whatever. But I did watch a Guy Ritchie production called Gentleman.
Yeah, and you rated it.
Superb. Superb. Really good. I'd recommend that one to you folks. If you've got anything you'd like to recommend back to us, let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com. Happy Easter. Here's the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Low pressure continues to dominate the weather pattern through today. Further spells of rain, heavy showers, blustery winds over the next few days as well. So looking at the bigger picture, we do have rain across northern and western parts of the UK this morning. Some localised flooding possible across parts of Northern Ireland in particular as the heavy rain from overnight slowly clears. Some bright spells developing as we move into the afternoon, but this will trigger some heavy thundery showers with some hail possible. With brisk southerly winds, it will feel quite chilly in the south and the west. Here highs of 11 or 12 Celsius. In any brighter skies, we could see highs of 13 or 14 in a few sheltered spots. Into the evening time, further heavy showers push northwards across the country, these merging into some longer spells of rain. And then during the early hours, this batch of wet weather moves into central southern parts of England and Wales. Could be heavy at times, so a cloudy night here, but clearing skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. A touch of frost and some fog here as temperatures fall close to, if not below, freezing. So a north-south split to start Thursday. Wet and windy weather across parts of Wales and England. Brighter skies Northern Ireland and Scotland, and then these weather systems slowly push northwards as we go through the day. Further wet and windy weather pushing into central southern England. Gales along some southern coasts at times too. The best of the drier weather holding on across northern Scotland, and for most temperatures around 12 or 13. See you soon.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The spring giveaway, the Great British giveaway, final week, ends on Friday. Have a go. 12,345 quid could be yours.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
If you're Welsh this morning, our commiserations to you to not qualify for Euro 2024 and penalties to blame. Paul Coit with all of that next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise and who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel. Wales against Poland, we've got to start there this morning. Big commiserations to you if you're Welsh or you were behind them. I think everybody was neutral, was behind Wales last night.
Yeah, I think so.
But Poland are there. Poland
are now in the Euros. It was a one-off game. I mean, there was the two playoffs. So Wales got through the first one, where they won 4-1, and then they had to go, which was against Finland, and then had to play Poland. And I was saying, I don't think it's going to be that easy, and it obviously wasn't. It was 0-0, went all the way to penalties. It's memories of 1973. And do you remember there was Jan Tomaszewski, who was the famous goalkeeper, do you remember, of Poland? And England were playing Poland back in 73.
Who called him a fool? Was it Brian Clough?
It was Brian Clough. Called him a clown, didn't he? And he turned out to be a great goalkeeper, whereas the clown was Szczesny, because he made some great saves yesterday. And Wales just couldn't score. And also Poland, they didn't have one shot on goal in the whole game. So it goes to penalties. And I know how do you feel about penalties? You're a little unsure, because I think it's an incredibly exciting way to... It's great if you win, but it's heartbreaking if you lose, isn't it?
I can see why they do it, but I'm very against it in the FA Cup. I do genuinely believe replays are needed in the FA Cup, because the smaller teams need to draw the bigger teams.
I agree with that. You know? But eventually, to actually end the tie... You know, there's all these different ways, and is it a lottery? It's not a lottery, and you see the way people take.
It's got to be seen as a skill. You've got to be able to do that.
100%. It's not only football skill, but mental skill as well. And Dan James was unfortunately the player that missed, and Chesney saved it. And there we are. Wales are out now, and so they won't be at the Euros in the summer, and Poland will be.
The other game I obviously want to mention is my own team, Northern Ireland, against Scotland. Scotland, they're on a wee bit of dip in form, it has to be said. But, you know, a very credible outfit, Scotland.
Yeah.
And for Northern Ireland to win 1-0, Conor Bradley, you know, he's doing so well for Liverpool. I think it's a really strong win for Northern Ireland.
It's a huge win. And also it's great when you've got a player...
Only a friendly, though.
You know, it doesn't matter, though, does it? A game's a game. You know, they're not going to want to...
It's like the home internationals we used to have.
Used to love the home internationals. And it was more important, though, in those days. So even though we can look back and think, wouldn't it be great to have those again? The most important thing about the home internationals back in the day is because it was live, there'd be games live on TV. Not all of them were. The England-Scotland game was, which was always the one that ended, and it always started with, it was usually, I remember England-Northern Ireland, and do you remember George Best knocking the ball out of Peter Shilton's? Were you there that day? Yeah. And the goal wasn't given, was it?
The goal wasn't given, and then England won with an offside goal. I think it was from Francis Lee.
Yeah.
I think it was. But it was, sun was shining. It was amazing. It was amazing to see George Best in action, and Gordon Banks. I mean, these big...
It was, yeah.
You know, to turn up at Windsor Park and see these big names that were playing for England. I mean, it was a big thing.
No, I love that. But we should mention England as well. England played Belgium last night.
Yeah.
That was a friendly as well. And Belgium were wearing the Tintin kit. You know, are you aware about... Look at that. And I don't know if this is actually true, and is that it is inspired by Tintin because...
Why? How?
Well, because of Hergé's Adventures of Tintin. That was what Tintin wore.
Are you with us, Isabel? Are you with us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know all about Tintin.
And do you know that phrase? Do you know that Hergé's Adventures of Tintin? No? No.
I used to find that really creepy. Did you find Tintin creepy? I just did.
Stupid hair, stupid dog.
Yes, stupid dog.
Stupid spinach.
That's Belgians for you all over, that is, I'll tell you. That's the Belgians.
Have you ever sat down and said, Tintin's on at 6 o'clock, I better watch Tintin?
No, not really.
Never.
But in Belgium, I'll tell you what, everybody would watch it.
Their finest export.
And a famous pop band got their name from... Who in Tintin?
Oh, Captain Haddock.
No, it wasn't. You remember that great band, Captain Haddock?
What was the Captain Haddock?
It was the Thompson twins. Oh. They were the two twins with the bowler hats. So Thompson twins were named after the Thompson twins in Tintin.
Gosh.
Did you know that?
Didn't know that. But why is the kit called the Tintin kit?
Well, because if we have another look at the kit, that's how Tintin would dress. He had the light blue jumper with the brown trousers. And I don't know, the white socks on, but
and the red hair.
So it is, So it's dedicated to. I mean, it would have been nice if they probably had the hairstyle and walked out with little white dogs. They might have given it away, or Captain Haddock would have been good. But that's why. But anyway, England. There was good stuff and bad stuff. Kobbie Mainoo, who made his debut, Manchester United player, he is going to be... He is a class act. I'm sure he's going to go to the Euros. He reminds me of Martin Peters, 1966, had never played a game for England until a couple of months before. They made his debut, then he got himself into the team, scored in the final, so I think Kobbie Mainoo is going to be a star at the Euros.
Look, you're mentioning the Belgium kit there, and there's a number of other kits that you want to highlight.
Yeah, there is. There is for the Euros. Now, there's been some controversy and some interest about different kits. Obviously, the England one. Now, we know about England, don't we, and the St George's flag. There was the controversy about that. That is obviously not the England flag. That is the three lions. But what can you do? But there we are. So there's that one. The other things that there's been a few controversies about. We've got another shirt here. I think this is probably the Germany one. Have we got the German one? There we are. There's the German one. We talked about that yesterday.
It's the colour.
That's the pink. Yeah, that's the pink that some people aren't happy about. The Belgian shirt, which we just talked about, the Tintin shirt, which I do very much like. But in France, there's been...
See, I don't like that.
Do you know, it's the away shirt. But
no, it reminds me of City.
Yeah, but they don't have the brown trousers. It should remind you of Tintin.
Well, I mean, I just can't. I can't look at that. It just reminds me of Man City. So why can I like that?
Okay. Well, I like it. It's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
But if you had My Heart,
I know
you wouldn't like it.
I know. I understand that. What about France then?
What about them?
Well, France, their emblem. Let's have a look at how it was looking. The emblem, the France emblem, is a small
cock.
A small male chicken. I think you'll find it's a small male chicken.
That's a cock.
Okay.
It's a cockerel.
Well, they've increased the size of that, and it's now much larger than it used to be. Look at the size of that male chicken on that shirt.
It's massive.
It is massive. And I think they've if I don't want to, make a pun, but they've over-egged the size of the male chicken on the shirt. Look at the size of that.
I wonder why they see that as being really important.
I don't know, but they obviously find it very important. And
bit of controversy.
So that's the change, is the size of the emblem on the France shirt.
That'll be interesting to see. That's very interesting to see how shirts have changed, and they're always looking for something to tweedle with. And
a little bit this, let's do this, and I know it shows this. Whatever. But anyway, did I navigate my way through there?
Very good, very good.
Okay.
Go and find some more, and we'll see you.
I'll see what I can do. Yeah, I'll have a look for you.
Okay, thanks very much indeed.
Right, still to come, we're going through the papers this morning. We're joined by Norman Baker and Renee Hunderkamp. They normally have a bit of a ding-dong, so stay tuned our way for that. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
So many of you have been getting in touch over the WASPy issue. And actually, I just want to bring forward a view from Tony, who has written in to say something that we haven't included in this conversation so far. Tony says, it was well publicised. Stop all the crying. His words. He says the Pensions Act 1995 provided for this change. It was marginally sped up in 2010, but the fundamental issue, the WASPy issue, didn't come about in 2010 or 2011. It came about in 1995.
Yeah, people know that the legislation was earlier, but the problem is a lot of women weren't told.
Beverly, who's a WASPy woman, has written in saying, were the WASPy women living under a stone? I am one of the women who was affected by this change. My peers and I were fully aware of the changes. It was widely discussed on TV, radio and in newspapers as soon as the decision was made. We weren't happy at the time, but we recognised that it was fair. It's wrong to spend billions in this way. I'd rather the post office people who suffered so much were reimbursed.
Well, I think for the social contract to work and for our society to be cohesive and harmonious, if that's possible, you can't just have people who don't work or don't receive all the benefit.
Well, now you're arguing against people. You're saying that people should have, to some extent, have looked in 1995 when the change happened. But fundamentally, it's not just WASPy women who've been screwed over since the financial crisis. We have a 70-year high tax burden. Someone earning £60,000 this year will pay more tax than someone earning £60,000 has ever had to pay before.
But Tom, you do realise this isn't the first time that we've had hugely high tax rates on income.
Stories making the news this morning. We do that in the company of Norman Baker and Renee Hunderkamp. Very good to see you both. And we're talking about this guy, what's his name?
Abdul
Zaidi. And we're talking about how he's committed suicide and how he was applying to be a British citizen and how big Norman religion was playing a part in him being accepted or not accepted. We've had a good debate on this this morning, Norman, and I have to say to you, people just don't see why so far. They don't see why his religion, his religious beliefs has got anything to do with staying in this country.
Well, I totally agree with that. Look, I mean, I think if people come here and they commit horrendous acts of violence, as this particular person has, then they forfeit their right to be here, in my view. I mean, they can't really apply for refugee status if they've behaved in that way. But secondly, on the religious point, I mean, the fact is, first of all, I don't believe he's converted to Christianity based on the questions which have been answered in the paper. But even if he had, that's no guarantee he's going to be an acceptable citizen. I'm sorry, there are Christians, people who say they're Christians around the world who behave quite abominably.
Absolutely.
So that's not a path.
There's so many branches of Christianity. I mean, why is this not the Church of England we're talking about? This is a Baptist church that endorsed.
Yes. Well, I mean, look, I mean, it's no guarantee of good behaviour to call yourself a Christian. So it's completely irrelevant in the application he's made.
I think it should be completely irrelevant in all asylum applications. I don't think whether you're Christian or Muslim or Sikh or anything should come into it. I think more importantly with this guy is he'd actually been turned down already.
Yes.
And this was like a third attempt at convincing a judge that he ought to be here. So it was blatantly just a con, really, for him to get his British citizenship. And I think we need to question our entire system of how we're assessing people for their status. We accept more people who get off the boats or come in legitimately than any other country in Europe. And we have to ask why. And it's because we take this kind of thing into account, people saying that they're gay into account, trans into account. And I'm sorry, there's too many.
But our immigration lawyer today was saying, say, wherever this guy came from, and say Christianity was deemed to be a crime in that country, he couldn't then go back there.
Of course.
The point that you were making was this guy had many religions before he actually came to this country and said, oh, yeah, Christianity suits me.
Yeah, why did he only think of it on the third attempt?
Yeah, because it's going to stop them.
Well, why was it a third attempt is the point. I mean, there should be an assessment carried out and there should be a right of appeal, and that's the end of it.
But where does this get sorted? Because obviously we had the immigration lawyer this morning saying that this was a point of law. So, you know, it's got nothing to do with the government's position on all of this, even though they say that they're tougher than ever.
But it's a European law.
Is this the ECHR at fault? Because if we were out of the ECHR, presumably we would have human rights laws in this country which would protect those kind of protected
well, look, I mean,
like your religion or your sexuality.
It's perfectly true that if you are coming from a country which makes it illegal to be a Christian or illegal to be gay, or whatever it happens to be, then that is a consideration to be taken into account. But, you know, even complying with human rights legislation, you don't have 3 appeals.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't.
Yeah.
Let's talk about... oh, yeah, here's one. Front page of the Mirror, traitors, Brits fighting for Putin. I thought this was a really interesting story. Explain this one to us, Norman.
Well, I mean, these are 2 people who appear rather unsavoury characters, if I may say so, who are fighting for the Russians. One of them is a former National Front member and a convicted thug, as is described by the Mirror. The other's been jailed for terrorism offences after spending 4 months helping the Russians in 2015. I mean, I just don't think people should be in anybody else's army at all. They should be in the British Army or not in any army, and they shouldn't be allowed to be mercenaries.
Joining us now, Minister of State, let me guess, for Science, Research and Innovation. He is Andrew Griffith.
Yes. Good morning to you, Minister. I don't know how much of our discussion of the papers you've been able to hear so far this morning, but obviously hot topic is the Clapham chemical attacker Abdul Azadi, and it begs one question. Why on earth was he able to appeal 3 times? And in this third appeal, was the judge granting him asylum, even though he was a convicted sex offender and had 2 previous cases thrown out?
Well, look, you raise a very good question, and, you know, what we can't have is a system driven by credulous clerics and lefty lawyers, which is precisely why this government is taking forward legislation that will ensure that people like Azadi should never be in this country in the first place. He arrived here illegally. We don't think anybody who arrives here illegally should be able to stay. That's why we're just a busload of votes away from being able to get through the House of Lords our plan that will make it illegal, that will allow us to return people like Azadi, have them out of this country, protect people. And that legislation has been opposed, I regret, by Labour each and every time we've brought it forward.
Well, that legislation not yet in place. I suppose the question remains, how many other people like Abdul Azadi remain at large in this country, given these massive loopholes that have been enabling people like him to stay in this country, costing the taxpayers a fortune?
Yeah, and that's why the Prime Minister's made it. It's one of our absolute 5 priorities. The Prime Minister's been clear, we will start those returns later this spring. We will get that legislation through, and we will do everything that it takes to protect the public and to remove people who come here illegally. There's no reason for people to do that. France is a safe country. It's a fellow G7 member. And if people arrive here illegally, they need to understand that they will not be allowed to stay, they will not be granted asylum, and they will ultimately be removed.
Andrew, what about people removing themselves from you, removing themselves from the Conservative Party? Two more today. It's just not a good look. What would you like to say to your well, they are colleagues, but they're also former colleagues as well, now declared today? What would you say on that front?
Well, look, two colleagues who've given great service to this country, to this party, both very long-standing members of Parliament. Understandably, people from time to time will decide that the right thing for their next chapter, their families, having given that long service, is to move on and do other things. That's not unusual at this point in the Parliament. What my colleagues are focused on is the economy. The plan is working. Inflation is falling. We're starting to see the benefits of that. People should be able to look forward to interest rates falling over time. And that's what this government is focused on. So, of course, in a large, any large organisation, you're going to see people at different points in their careers.
It's because it's a sinking ship, isn't it? I mean, the 60 MPs saying they're not going to stand again. They know that a lot of them just frankly can't win in their constituencies.
No, I absolutely think that the Conservatives can win the election. There's important things. It's been a difficult number of years. No one foresaw the COVID pandemic. Nobody saw Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So it's been difficult for everybody in the country. I understand that. People, have had their frustrations, but the answers to those frustrations are all Conservative. If you're worried about your train service not being reliable, the answer isn't to repeal every single trade union law passed since the 1970s. If you're worried about your interest rates being too high, it's not to have the hundreds of billions of unfunded spending promises from Labour. So I understand where people are. They've been grumpy. We're focusing on delivering our plan, and that's, I think, the way that we can convince people that the right answer is Conservative.
Are the answers all Conservative? You've been 14 years in power. You look at the waiting list. One of Rishi Sunak's 5 pledges was to cut the waiting list. The King's Fund and Nuffield Trust today saying the public think they're in a toxic relationship with the health service. 1 in 4 saying that they have lost faith in it and that confidence is the lowest on record.
Yeah, and look, those numbers, should be of concern to everybody. They're worse in Labour Wales. In Labour Wales, the confidence in the NHS was significantly lower, but those numbers aren't good for anybody, don't get me wrong. But for the last 4 consecutive months, waiting lists have fallen. The longest waits in particular, those over 2 years, those over 18 months have now almost been eliminated. There are record resources going into the NHS. Despite the strikes, we continue to make forward progress. And of course, we come off the back of a pandemic, which did put huge challenge and strain on our healthcare system.
Well, what do you do, Andrew, and I'm sorry we don't spend more time in this fascinating area in science, research and innovation that you do. Michelle Donnellan, who's appeared on the programme a good few times talking about the area, she is the Secretary of State for all of this. Now, she's going to be speaking at the Natural History Museum today. Now, you're going to be talking about the digitisation of historic specimens. Looking at that, how does that help us today?
Well, the UK and the Natural History Museum in particular has got this unparalleled resource, 137 million specimens gathered from the Victorian era onwards. And if you like, that's a record of what's happened to nature, some of how things have been impacted by climate, how disease or potentially disease-carrying creatures like mosquitoes have moved around over time. And so the digitisation of that fantastic resource is one of the programmes that we've announced today. Another is one of the world's most sensitive microscopes that can see what's going on in individual atoms and molecules in real time. That'll help us understand new materials. It could help potentially find new drugs, discover why particular ailments and diseases happen. So, science is incredibly important, and it impacts on all of our day-to-day lives because it's how we live better quality, healthier lives going forward. One of the things we should all be really proud of as a country is that the UK is one of the world's superpowers in science. We make a massive contribution, and that in turn creates jobs up and down the UK. That microscope I talked about, that's up in Liverpool. So this isn't just, academic sciences in the southeast of England. This is spread across the whole UK, benefiting everybody.
Science is massively important. Security, national security, defence, massively important. I just want to ask you about Grant Shapps yesterday. He was talking about the defence budget. He admitted that the figures were misleading, but he's been called a cheat. And this morning, Lieutenant General Sir Bob McGowan saying we can't afford enough ammunition to protect Britain. Should we be concerned?
Well, I think everybody is concerned about defence, no more so than this government. That's why we've put unprecedented resources, as well as providing the second largest amount of military aid and support to Ukraine, which is the nearest hot war in the continent of Europe. So, of course, everybody should be concerned, and this government is committed to increasing the levels that we spend on defence up over time. That has to be balanced with the affordability of doing that.
Andrew, appreciate it. Got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. That's Andrew Griffith. Have a good day today at the Natural History Museum. He is the Minister of State for Science, Research and Innovation. In the studio, Norman Baker and Rennie Honderkamp there. Norman, any observations about what the Minister was saying about those various subjects? We've got about 40 seconds.
Well, I mean, he was asked a question about apples and answered about pears. This is the reality of it. I mean, he was asked about the specific case about this chemical attacker and gave a wide answer on small boats, which is not relevant at all to the question. So I think ministers ought to answer the question which they're given, to be perfectly frank.
And what about the two ministers that are jumping ship?
Look, I think he put up a very valiant defence of them, didn't he? But actually, to be fair, we know that they think they can't win their seats, and they're just going before the humiliation comes.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Both will see you again in 40 minutes' time. Right now we're going to see Greg Dewhurst.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Low pressure continues to dominate the weather pattern through today. Further spells of rain, heavy showers, blustery winds over the next few days as well. So looking at the bigger picture, we do have rain across northern and western parts of the UK this morning. Some localised flooding possible across parts of Northern Ireland in particular as the heavy rain from overnight slowly clears. Some bright spells developing as we move into the afternoon, but this will trigger some heavy thundery showers with some hail possible. With brisk southerly winds, it will feel quite chilly in the south and the west. Here, highs of 11 or 12 Celsius. In any brighter skies, we could see highs of 13 or 14 in a few sheltered spots. Into the evening time, further heavy showers push northwards across the country, these merging into some longer spells of rain. And then during the early hours, this batch of wet weather moves into central southern parts of England and Wales. Could be heavy at times, so a cloudy night here, but clearing skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. A touch of frost and some fog here as temperatures fall close to, if not below, freezing. So a north-south split to start Thursday. Wet and windy weather across parts of Wales and England. Brighter skies Northern Ireland and Scotland, and then these weather systems slowly push northwards as we go through the day. Further wet and windy weather pushing into central southern England. Gales along some southern coasts at times too. The best of the drier weather holding on across northern Scotland, and for most temperatures around 12 or 13. See you soon.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Church conversion criticism. Home Office sources accuse the Christianity religion of undermining the asylum system.
That's after the Clapham chemical attacker was allowed to remain in this country despite lying and failing his Christianity test.
Double departure for Rishi Sunak, the exit of two more Tory ministers, forcing the Prime Minister into a pre-Easter reshuffle.
Yes, another big headache for Rishi Sunak as two experienced ministers decide that they don't want to go down with the ship. Find out more with me very soon.
The Duke of Sussex dragged into the Diddy lawsuit. Prince Harry has been named in the rap star's legal proceedings, alleging that Sean Diddy Coombs used his name to give sex trafficking parties legitimacy.
Wales failed to secure a place at Euro 2024 after losing their playoff final against Poland in a heartbreaking penalty shootout. Worst way to go.
Hospitals give free vapes in a bid to help thousands quit smoking. We'll be asking, should they be provided to smokers free on the NHS? 1 minute they're very bad for us, the next minute you can pick them up free. That's our debate later.
And are we being shortchanged in a new Easter egg shrinkflation? Some Easter eggs are costing 50% more, whilst others are smaller.
And in the sport this morning, penalties, great if you win, heartbreaking if you lose. Wales will not be at the Euros this summer after going out on spot kicks to Poland last night. Jude Bellingham scored with the last kick of the game after most of Wembley had headed home in the rain after England drew 2-2 with Belgium. And Northern Ireland beat Scotland at Hampden Park for the first time in 50 years.
There we've got heavy rain and showers in the forecast today, but some sunshine too. Find out all the weather details coming up in the programme soon.
Well, a very good morning to you. Welcome to Breakfast on this Wednesday, the 27th of March. We're tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Migration hitting the headlines today. Home Office sources have said churches run the risk of undermining the integrity of the asylum system. This is after it was revealed that the chemical attacker, Abdul Zidi, was allowed to stay in Britain by a judge who accepted he was a Christian convert, despite concerns over him lying quite a lot.
Yes, immigration files have been published now by the Home Office. They show how Azadi was granted asylum after his application was backed by a Baptist church minister. Yeah. And there were lots of concerns in those papers that have been released about his honesty, not least his previous accounts of his own religion. He was a Shia, then he became a Sunni. His brother was shot at home by the Taliban, then he was shot at a mosque. He'd suffered from shrapnel, then a GP said that they weren't genuine concerns. And he was also unable to identify what the Old Testament was. He thought Jesus appeared in it and couldn't name any hymns. But perhaps worst of all, He was a convicted sex offender and was on the sex offenders register for life. How on earth did this person remain in this country to commit a chemical attack?
Well, GB News viewer and contributor Paula London was on the programme an hour ago. She joins us again. Paula, I do have to say you were very critical about this whole situation. You're very angry about this whole situation, and you're totally in tune with our viewers and listeners this morning who just sort of feel this is a joke. What is this system that these migrants can sort of... You come to this country and it seems to be lawyers are saying to them, well, how can you stay? Oh, sign up to be a Christian. That would be a good idea.
It's just awful. I feel like when I was 12 years of age, someone tried to grab me off my bike into a car. So I feel like this resonates for me. I know what it's like to be young girls scared. So I will always speak up for young girls and women. And it's just heartbreaking what's happening, and people just don't seem to care. And they just care more about, as I say, these asylum seekers than they care about British people. And that will never sit right with me. I'm a true Christian. I pray every day to God, and God has answered some of my prayers and helps me. So when people use his name in vain, that really upsets me as well. And I just don't know what's going to happen to this country at the moment. If things are getting worse and worse, and I feel like what's going to happen, we're going to end up being like Sweden, where the police had to go on TV and say, I'm really sorry, ladies, we can no longer keep you safe. There's been so many sexual attacks.
Yeah, but
and
Paula,
they had huge influx
what you're
of
talking
asylum
about...
seekers. I don't want things to get as bad.
What you're talking about is this guy getting around the system. And I do have to say, and I'm going to say this out loud, there are obviously people within the immigration system or within the legal profession lobbying on behalf of this who are actually lying, cheating, making false claims here for things that just are not true. And certainly if I was on a panel, I could not care less what religion anyone was. I don't see what that has got to do with whether you'd make a great British citizen or not.
Agreed. I think what's very important, when people are going to France to get their asylum granted, they're only 20% likely to get the right to remain. Using the same story that they'll use here, they're about 60% more likely to get their asylum granted. But for some reason, we've got a lot of human rights lawyers that care about money than safety. In France, a lot of the lawyers aren't like that so much because they've had way more terror attacks than we've had. And I don't want things to get as bad here, where some lawyers change their tune. We need to act now before things get worse.
Well, that's interesting
100%.
because presumably France falls under the jurisdiction of the ECHR, the European Convention of Human Rights, which is what's cited the whole time here in this country. We can't get rid of them because of this wretched ECHR, but it sounds like it's our own problem. So that, you know, should be levelled at the government. And, you know, we spoke to a minister just a few minutes ago who said, don't worry, we're going to change the rules any minute now. Anyone with any sort of, well, as soon as they touch the shore, they'll be deported. Is the new plan once it gets passed. Do you think that's going to work with the legal situation that we're facing?
We need more of a backbone in this country. We're supposed to be a sovereign country. Our laws are supposed to be, you know, that's it, basically. If we look at France, if we look at Poland, they're in the ECHR. They just ignore the rulings because they care about national security more. And if you look at France, about 2 months ago, they decided to ignore an ECHR ruling because they are supposed to be advisory, and they deported someone because he was a national security threat. In this country, we're just not doing it. And I hope it doesn't happen, but I feel like something tragic's going to happen in this country before people wake up. And I'll always speak up before this happens to see if we can have change. We don't have to go with what the ECHR say. We can ignore it.
A lot of people very anti-lawyer on this one. Aidan saying we're talking about corrupt solicitors here making so much easy money on this one. Valerie says, I would be interested to know how many asylum seekers would actually convert to Christianity after they've got their citizenship, after they've been given leave to remain. And that's an interesting point, isn't it?
We've got to remember, you know, even MI5 have admitted that some of these people arriving by a dinghy are on our terror watch list. And let's also remember that 90% are Islamic extremists. These people, they're devout Muslims. They're not going to convert to Christianity. Hardly any And if anyone believes them, they're just living in cloud cuckoo land. There's no way.
Okay.
There's no way that
Just a final word from you, Paula, because I know you said that you're a Christian, you pray every day, and I was just looking up what the Archbishop of Canterbury, because of course he's not a Baptist who are involved in this case, but he and top faith leaders in the country wrote a letter to the Times newspaper saying the illegal migration bill that the government are pushing forward falls short of our obligation towards the most vulnerable. It fails to meet the basic test of an evidence-based and workable policy, and we need an alternative approach that reflects our country's histories, values and responsibilities. So how do you balance that? Because is there not a risk, if you throw out all of these cases, that actually really genuine asylum seekers could well be sent back to countries where they could face persecution or worse?
Well, they can go back to France and not face some persecution there. So they're just making up all of these stories, and we just need to wake up. I feel sorry for a lot of priests. There are a lot of great priests in this country, but they get a lot of pressure from bishops. That's the problem. It's the bishops. It's not the priests in the local church.
OK. Paula, fascinating listening to you today. As I say, you speak and represent so many people out there. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Now, more bad news for the Prime Minister. A bit of a sinking ship happening for him. A double departure of ministers yesterday in quick succession. The Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, regular on this programme, and the Higher Education Minister, Robert Halfon, who's also very senior in a lot of the crossbench select committees, announced that he's stepping down from the government.
So this move has forced Rishi Sunak into a reshuffle, mini reshuffle, on the day Parliament breaks for the Easter recess. So, does it end here? Let's go to Olivia Attlee, our political correspondent, on this one. What do you think, Olivia? Does it end here?
Well, this is a really big headache for the Prime Minister. Both Robert Halfon and Heappey were very experienced ministers. They were well-respected ministers. The Shadow Defence Secretary actually praised, the Labour Shadow Defence Secretary actually praised Heappey's performance in the role as Armed Forces Minister on his departure, which just goes to show how respected they were across the whole board. It seems as though both of these two ministers are choosing to stand down now because they are standing down as MPs at the general election. Why? Probably because both of them would be likely to lose their seats at that election. And of course, they are not alone. More Conservative MPs are standing down in 2024 than at any time since 1997, before the Blair landslide. I expect that this isn't the end of the ministerial resignations that we're going to see over the next few months. There are lots of Conservative MPs who are in much more precarious positions than either Halfon or Heappey, with very small majorities indeed. Even a number of cabinet ministers, Penny Mordaunt, for example, looks set to lose her seat in Portsmouth if the polls keep going as they are. I think we can expect to see a whole slew of cabinet, possibly resignations, but certainly resignations among the ministerial ranks before we actually get to the general election. Rishi Sunak would be very lucky to avoid more days like yesterday.
Thank you very much indeed. We will leave it there. Prince Harry, just look at the front page of the Sun today. He's making headlines there. He's been named in a US court documents relating to the rapper P. Diddy, whose real name is Sean Combs.
Yeah, the court documents filed in the US mention guests were drawn to Combs's alleged sex trafficking parties because of his so-called access to celebrities and international dignitaries, which included the likes of Prince Harry.
Let's go to Royal and Showbiz reporter Kinsey Schofield on this one. So Harry's been named. What will this mean for him and his wife?
Well, I have to be honest with you. It looks like Prince Harry's being thrown under the bus here. And, you know, I'm willing to criticize Prince Harry when it's appropriate. If you want to talk about his African Parks charity, I've got all day. But in this particular case, it seems like the accuser here, who is a producer named Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who filed this $30 million lawsuit in February, is trying to get attention by dropping some of these bigger names like Prince Harry's into this documentation, trying to say that Prince Harry gave P. Diddy credibility. Now, the only time Prince Harry and P. Diddy are photographed together is in 2007 at an event honoring Princess Diana. The last time I could find Sean Combs talking about Prince Harry is in 2011 during a Graham Norton interview where he's joking, and he clearly has no relationship with him. There's no proof that Prince Harry has nurtured any type of relationship with Sean P. Diddy Combs. And as somebody that's worked for Diddy, I can assure you that he doesn't need Prince Harry when it comes to, you know, any sort of cool points over the years. I've never seen him have to name drop. He was always Diddy.
Rewind a minute there. You worked for him or with him?
Yeah, I threw a party for him for Ciroc vodka. And, you know, I never had any issues with him. I'm very lucky in that regard. I don't have anything negative to say about him. Obviously, these accusations are appalling, but I'm a good girl. So he probably knew not to do anything like that around me. But, you know, this is all over the news here. He is accused of sex trafficking and multiple sex assault lawsuits, with raids on multiple houses on Monday by Homeland Security, with them seizing electronics and interviewing 4 Jane Does and 1 John Doe, the New York prosecutors, in connection with sex trafficking and a racketeering investigation. So similar to R. Kelly, and very serious allegations.
It's interesting you were talking about the picture that Prince Harry was photographed next to P. Diddy. I think Prince William's also in that picture, and interesting that he's managed to completely avoid being mentioned in all this, just as well, given what's going on for him at the moment. But I wonder why this particular claimant has gone after or decided to pick on Prince Harry, sorry.
I think it's because Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are headline grabbers all over the world, and it's guaranteed press. It's going to guarantee that you'll end up on the cover of the Sun, and I think ultimately this accuser is looking for a payday. And I'm not saying that P. Diddy's innocent. I don't know what the truth is here, but I can tell you, based on past experience with his ex-girlfriend Cassie, he settled that. I believe it was just one day after that court filing, when it came to a 2017 chef that alleged that P. Diddy was inappropriate with her. He settled that 2 years later. So he has a history of settling these cases. You know, blow this up and you could potentially get a great payday. So of course you're going to want this splashed across all the newspapers, and Prince Harry is a great way to do that.
Well, I think it's great talking to you, having worked with him, having knowing how his name is pronounced, as I was pronouncing it this morning and told I was wrong. It's spelt Combs, as in a comb through your hair. It should be pronounced, if it was in Ireland, it would be Combs. But here the young folks say, what, Isabel?
I thought Coombs, so I checked with the youngsters in the newsroom. They're all like Coombs. But maybe they're too young to really know about Diddy as well.
Or stupid.
Could be highly stupid. I say young.
Could be stupid.
Also, Kinsey, how good of you to get the memo that we're all in purple today. I love that.
I was happy when I logged on and saw that. I did get that memo. Thank you very much.
Well, purple is an Easter colour for Lent.
Yeah. And she is a good girl, so she knows these things.
And therefore,
you know it.
Yeah, very good. Kinsey, good talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right, still lots of reaction coming in about migration and what people have got to do to become resident in this country. Let's get the weather update with the time, 16 minutes past 7. Greg, good morning.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Low pressure continues to dominate the weather pattern through today. Further spells of rain, heavy showers, blustery winds over the next few days as well. So looking at the bigger picture, we do have rain across northern and western parts of the UK this morning. Some localised flooding possible across parts of Northern Ireland in particular as the heavy rain from overnight slowly clears. Some bright spells developing as we move into the afternoon, but this will trigger some heavy thundery showers with some hail possible. With brisk southerly winds, it will feel quite chilly in the south and the west. Here, highs of 11 or 12 Celsius. In any brighter skies, we could see highs of 13 or 14 in a few sheltered spots. Into the evening time, further heavy showers push northwards across the country, these merging into some longer spells of rain. And then during the early hours, this batch of wet weather moves into central southern parts of England and Wales. Could be heavy at times, so a cloudy night here, but clearing skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland, a touch of frost and some fog here as temperatures fall close to, if not below, freezing. So a north-south split to start Thursday, wet and windy weather across parts of Wales and England. Brighter skies Northern Ireland and Scotland, and then these weather systems slowly push northwards as we go through the day. Further wet and windy weather pushing into central southern England. Gales along some southern coasts at times too. The best of the drier weather holding on across northern Scotland, and for most temperatures around 12 or 13. See you soon.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Oh, I'm loving your opinions on migration today. You see, the thing is that most of us see things very simple. Yes, no, right, wrong, black, white, grey, whatever, somewhere in between. And a lot of you are just saying, look, what are we debating this for? It's simple. This is Simon. Just pass a law to either reduce or remove the right of appeal if you enter illegally and force it through Parliament. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that I think people find it really difficult to understand the political shenanigans that goes on and why things... I often think, politicians get a bad name, but I don't think it's the politicians so much as the procedure that we have and, the system that we have that delays. And too many people have a say. That's when you give too many people a say, then too many people have a say.
Tony says, I don't blame the church. He should have been deported previously. Home Office is deflecting their responsibility. And Lawrence says, we keep making the ECHR as an excuse. Countries like Poland override it when required with no comeback. We need a backbone.
Right, here is a simple thing now. How you can win £12,345 in cash. Lovely, bubbly. Lines will close this Friday, so make sure you get your entry in, and here's how you do that.
Want to be a winner just like Phil?
Obviously, whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
Enter our massive spring giveaway. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finances a spring boost. We'll also send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. You'll also get a garden gadget package. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Last week on this programme, I was reporting on how vapes are just as bad as nicotine. They're going to kill you. They're going to shrivel you up. Bits and pieces inside you will disappear. They're all sorts of, well, it was cancerous and all sorts of things, whatever. What's happening this week?
Oh, now they're handing them out for free, not just anywhere, at hospitals.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers. I agree. And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're talking all things vapes now. New research has found that giving free vapes to smokers in A&E has actually helped almost 1 in 4 quit smoking entirely after 6 months.
OK, so what should the NHS do? Should the NHS provide free vapes? The shops are everywhere, in every town, high street. They just pop up, incredible. What do you think of this at home? Please let us know this morning. You know how to get in touch. And earlier, we took to the high street to see what people thought. And here's what they said.
Nah, not for free. I just think that's a bit silly, in all honesty. I think you're a grown adult. You make your own choices anyway. Do you know what I mean? I understand people go through what they go through, but at the end of the day, it's a purchase. So if you're a grown adult, that's your responsibility, so...
Free, not necessarily. For people who are completely attached to them, yes. It would definitely cut down the majority of people who are smoking, yes, because I'm a smoker myself and I do vape. But when people are around you and they're smoking, it's like, what's the point of vaping? Because there's one person standing next to me with a cigarette in their hand.
I wouldn't give anybody who's smoking anything.
They're making it simple, too simple for people.
Yeah.
I mean, we smoked. Obviously, we're at that age where people smoked. And we've given it up now 20 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, but we done it.
What about booze? Let's have some free booze, you know.
Well, we're just looking at the high street there, and there was a Timpson's in the background, and there's a man that needs highlighted, who gives, you know, jobs and careers to people who have served prison sentences, gets them rehabilitated. Very charitable man, very good the way he runs his business. He gives so much money to charity and whatever, but I just thought I'd throw that in. But anyway, it's now vapes everywhere.
Let's get the views of the Director of Research for the Adam Smith Institute, Max Marlowe, and Professor of Vascular Surgery, Dr. Sheriff Sultan. And I want to start with you, Professor, because this is a medical matter. Look, 1 in 4 people have been able to quit smoking as a result of this scheme. That's got to be a good thing. But are vapes actually good for us? And if they're not, what on earth's A&E doing handing them out?
Promotion of vaping as a harm reduction tool is totally misguided. We are witnessing a troubling conversion of a public health objectives and corporate interests. Smoke-free England by 2030 have been done through consultation with a couple of big firms. And they said that they need England to be smoke-free by 2030. But if you look at the British American Tobacco or Philip Morris International strategy, they have the same exactly. By 2030, they need to stop smokers from using cigarettes and use their new e-cigarettes. So you could see there is a conversion between public health objective and corporate interest. Subsidizing vaping product with taxpayer money is something never happened. And if it happened, you have a problem because you might have a near general election and there's some money coming somewhere. It doesn't make sense. Right. It doesn't make sense.
Doctor, just before we bring in Max, can you tell me, I'm lucky enough, I'm blessed that I'm not a smoker, Isabel's not a smoker either, and I don't feel any desire to have a vape or to have nicotine or whatever, thankfully, thank God. But what comes first? Do these things, having nicotine or having a vape, does it make us want more, or are we born with a desire for these things?
That's a very good question. And to be very clear that if you start vaping, it's a full-fledged way for full smoking. It's not going to stop you from smoking. It's just you vape, you're going to smoke. Everybody knows that. The problem is that the lobbying and trying to show that vaping is much more safer doesn't have any scientific evidence. The World Health Organization said it's not true and it's a trap. This is from the Director General. And they said that it's a body of lies what they're saying about e-vaping. That's the only big international institute that haven't been penetrated by the lobbying group about vaping. And that's why the like of giant tobacco are trying to target the WHO and pull it down. We are witnessing a criminal act by trying to provide vaping in accident and emergency for patients coming in with a problem. They will block the lung. We have no idea what's the long-term effect. We know that there is 15 times more incidence of cancer because of the formaldehyde in vaping. I know that it's less 7,000 product than smoking, but still we don't have long-term effect. And we know about the formaldehyde and the vitamin E and all the other stuff. So do not tell me that it's safe. It is not safe. And we have to tell people it's not safe.
Well, that's putting Max Marlowe into fits of giggles there.
Yeah, Max, I mean, look, it was on the front of the Times last week. We spoke to a government minister about the concerns about these vapes that have got all these flavours in and are being used by children, and we don't know the impact on their growing lungs. I mean, just replacing something that is unknown in terms of its harms fully understood with something that we know the harms with is surely not a good health policy.
Well, sorry, I seem to have fallen through Alice's looking glass here. Let's see, and let's get the facts right on this. Who is supporting the evidence on the safety of vapes?
World Health Organization, apparently.
Yes, the largest funder for the FCTC is China Tobacco, so the largest tobacco company in the world.
Yeah, but the World Health Organization say that these vapes are not good for us.
Yes, but Chris Whitty, Action on Smoking Health, King's College London, the Department for Health and Social Care, the European Commission,
Hang on, that's not,
US
sorry,
government.
I've seen Professor Chris Whitty talking about the concerns of not knowing the long-term impact of vapes on young children. I've seen him say those words himself.
Yes, indeed, and he's right about with children, and it is illegal for children to vape. They should not be vaping. But he is CMO of a department which is pulling ahead with a policy which is world leading. Let's see, smoking kills 60,000 people a year. Vaping does not. There is no clinical evidence whatsoever to suppose that. Okay, it is a tried and tested way of getting people off smoking. That is the most important thing. What we're hearing from Professor Sultan is, it has no peer-reviewed real evidence in the wider medical community, and as he should know. Of course,
Max, I'm sure when cigarettes started out and you'd big Hollywood stars promoting it and whatever, saying how healthy it was and how great it was and whatever, I'm sure, as we know, it took years. It took 30-odd years or so before anybody started linking the dots together. Are we not talking about the same conditions for vapes?
I mean, maybe we are. I can't tell the future. However, what we do know now is that vaping is much safer than smoking.
Yes,
and
but
the big public health enemy is smoking.
That takes me back to my... So, I mean, you've basically agreed with my initial question, which was, is it really right to roll out a health policy that is replacing something which is known to be harmful, which something is unknown in terms of its harmfulness? I mean, surely you should only be rolling out something that is known to be safe to replace something that is known to be harmful.
Well, we've had e-cigarettes for over 15 years now, and, you know, that's quite long-term. We know the health outcomes of these. It is much, much safer than smoking. So you can either do a cost-benefit analysis, which is really important here, and we do this a lot in economics, wherein we can say the cost of people vaping in the immediate and long term is low, and, you know, and the benefit is very high, and that's inverse for smoking. So, you know, let's do the cost-benefit on that, and we have our public health outcome, and it's world-leading. It's been praised, you know, across the board, and you know, the professor can shake his head. I've seen no citation of his work anywhere.
I don't want to cut
especially
in, but you are talking
massive
about
documents.
stuff that doesn't exist. You are working in an organization that's taking money from the tobacco industry. You are writing a consultancy reports and lobbying tactics from your organization. So how could you tell me that? You're the least transparent organization in the whole UK as per democracy online. So what are you talking about? You tell me that I'm wrong? I'm telling you what the WHO is telling you the truth, even if it's been paid. She's telling you it's bad. The FDA have already totally cancelled anything regarding e-cigarettes. So I don't understand. The only country on earth decided to go with this on a taxpayer money. It doesn't make sense. There's
Gentlemen, we've got to leave it there.
On the
Thank you both very, very much indeed. Our viewers and listeners will get in touch and tell us what they think. Is it a good thing? Latest research, wherever that is saying that 1 in 4 people are come off smoking because of using vapes. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? Is it too early to judge that sort of thing? Let us know. We've got Paul Coyte. He's got the sport. It's about kits and it's about misses. He'll tell you all after this.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got Paul, he's got the sport and football last night. Heartbreak for Wales.
Yeah, it is heartbreak, is it, going out on penalties against Poland. It was never going to be an easy game, it really wasn't. But it was the playoff for the Euros, and whoever won was winner takes all. Whoever won the game would be off to the Euros in the summer. 0-0. Poland, I mean, Poland didn't even get a shot on goal, to be fair.
Even did what's his name play? Lewandowski?
Lewandowski was playing, yeah. I mean, Wales defended well, you know, they kept him back. But Poland seemed to have most of the possession. But, I mean, that doesn't mean anything, does it? If you're not scoring, it doesn't mean a thing.
Well, this is basically a cup game, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
It didn't go...
Cup game, no replay, went to penalties.
Well, heartbreaking.
4-4, and then it was Dan James that missed the final penalty, and that was it. So they were out.
Then, you say that was it, at Hampden Park, Scotland, who had a little bit of a wobble recently, and you think they have a good chance of going back on course. My team, Northern Ireland, great win for them, 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, Scotland, they were doing great, qualifying for the Euros. And I think this wobbly phase, they haven't won in 7 now, and going towards the Euros, and you're thinking, you're a little worried for them. But Northern Ireland, I mean, let's give Northern Ireland credit. First time, 50 years, it was May 1974, the last time you were a very, very small boy. Very small boy.
No, I wasn't. I was about 14 or 15 at the time.
Okay.
I mean, this is when football was so magic to me, if you go back to the 70s. So,
who was playing? You tell me.
God.
Scotland.
Derek Dougan for Northern Ireland.
No, Dougan wasn't playing. There's no Dougan.
Playing. Dave Clements.
Dave Clements was playing.
Yeah, Pat Jennings.
Big Pat was in goal.
Was George on?
No, George wasn't playing because it was 74. He'd probably retired by then, hadn't he? Or one of the many retirements.
He was on a night out the night before.
Yeah, well, that never stopped him, did it?
No.
But it was 1-0. And playing for Brian Hamilton was playing Sammy McElroy.
Yeah.
Was playing for Sammy.
I've got to know Sammy very, very well. Lovely man. Who not only played for Northern Ireland, but managed them.
And Manchester United as well. Yeah. Can't go wrong with you, can he? Sammy McElroy. And playing for Scotland, just to show what a great result this was. Because if you go back to the 70s...
They would have been good.
I mean, they would have been good because there were no foreign players were allowed to play in this country. So you're either all from the home country, so everybody playing...
So was Dalglish playing?
Dalglish and Law were playing up front together.
That's amazing. 2 generations.
I know, yeah. Tommy Hutchinson, remember Tommy Hutchinson with the moustache? Billy Bremner was the captain.
What a player,
Willie Donachie, do you remember Willie Donachie? Used to
played for Man City.
Played for Manchester City. Old Manchester United captain Martin Buchan was playing as well. So 1-0 it was to Northern Ireland.
Was Buchan the captain?
No, Billy Bremner would have been the captain.
Billy Bremner was the captain.
So Buchan would have been a young buck. Or a young Buchan. Or a young Buchan in those days.
Great memories there, mister. Great memories.
Absolutely. Andy Murray. I've got to mention England. Have to mention England because... Obviously, they played Belgium yesterday. It was a friendly. Yep. It was 2-2, 2-1 down. Some pretty bad mistakes, I've got to tell you, by England. At the back, it's up front, probably, arguably, the best front line that there's going to be almost in the world. I mean, they're so good, but at the back, it was a little wobbly. Yeah. Mistake by the keeper, and then there was defensive errors. But Jude Bellingham scored with literally the last kick of the match to make it 2-2.
OK. So, yeah. Looking ahead to sport this weekend, and it's the Oxford-Cambridge boat race.
Yes. Do we think... Do we class this as good sport? What do you think? Where do you stand with the boat race?
I've never stood and watched it live. But do I...
do you care? That's what I'm saying. Do we care about the boat race?
You rarely see someone slipping behind and then regaining, go back up into the lead. I think once you get in the lead, you stay there, really. But, it's tradition. It
is traditional, yeah.
I don't know. It must be a very expensive thing to screen because you're going to have so many cameras right along that river.
4.5 miles around the river.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen it a few times. I'll go, though. They really do go fast. But it's whether the interest is still there. Obviously... More people were interested in years ago. We're going back 100 years because of then it was the only sport on TV. But there is problems
100
now.
years ago.
There's the TV. You used to watch TV back in the day, didn't they? Where was Logie Baird? Where was that? So anyway, it goes back. The race goes back over 100 years, but obviously televised for a little less than that. But there are 2,869 E. coli per 100 millilitres of water, Eamonn, in the Thames. 1,000 is a safe reading, but quite frankly, if you do win the boat race and you fall in the water, you don't want to be jumping in the water in that Thames.
Look at that water and it's so brown. Isabel, you lived near the Thames, or you did, and did you ever go and see it?
Yeah, we would watch it on the TV, and then when it got to our stretch of the Thames, we'd run down, because otherwise you'd be standing and don't see an awful lot, because they'd go past so quickly. But you ask if it's a real sport, and I mean, certainly if you try to go and watch it, it's thick with the side of the Thames is deep with people trying to watch, and the athleticism. A lot of these guys.
I bet you're a sculler, aren't you?
6'5",
Are you a sculler?
6'6". I did rowing at school, but I wasn't fit enough. You have to be so fit that they would make you throw up.
So it's an all balance.
I'm all right on the balance bit, but the physicality of it. I mean, these are big, strong people.
If they did a boat race pedalo thing, me and Eamonn may be able to get involved. You know,
all the powers in the
pedalo
thighs.
Racing. You know, I think maybe we'd have a go. But I don't know about you. But do you think? I don't know. I know it's bad, but let's be honest here. It's probably the elephant in the room when it comes to the boat race. A lot of people only want to watch it just to see if they sink. You know?
No.
Is that bad?
No, it's when they bump into each other.
Who?
I have no idea.
I think Cambridge. I'll say
think so?
that. Yeah.
You've got a choice of two.
I'm going for Cambridge.
I think I'll go for Oxford.
Okay, there you go.
We'll have a look. But it is on Saturday, but they're saying they mustn't jump in the water because it's dangerous. They have special cleaning stations.
You have been warned. Thank you very much indeed.
Don't go celebrating in the Thames.
Thank you very much indeed.
Right, stay with us. We've got the papers coming up. Norman Baker and Renee Hunderkamp to take us through a bit longer than last time. We look forward to that. See you in a minute.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
I like to call this one robbing Peter to pay Paul. The Labour Party have embarked on a journey that I can only describe as politics of envy. I think it's time we scrutinise their policies more closely and establish in our minds what a Labour government might mean to the education system. Sir Keir Starmer and his party have for far too long capitalised on the abject failure of the Conservatives and haven't really had to explain themselves. But as part of their manifesto, Labour intend to charge VAT at 20% on private schools because I suspect they think that people who send their kids there will stump up the cash no matter what, and that these people have money. They will then use this money, Labour, to fund state schools. Basically, they will rob Peter to pay Paul. But what I believe they've failed to realise, I'm not sure whether they've factored this in, is that many people who send their kids to private schools do so at great sacrifice and are in fact paying twice into the education system. I spent my first year of secondary education in a state school. I'll be honest, when I started I was at the top of the class, but by the end of the year I was near the bottom. But then my dad got promoted to a post on Wall Street in the States. My parents sent me to a private boarding school in the UK run by nuns, and my family moved to America. Thank God for the opportunity I was given to go private. At boarding school, I grew in confidence, and I'm here now because of it. My father's work, NatWest, and a loan my dad took out paid for my private education. We were nowhere near as rich as some of the kids there, but there are also many children, I would say at least half, whose parents were busting a gut to send them there. It is clear that the state education system is failing, but rather than robbing Peter to pay Paul, surely it would be better for the party to improve the state system without destroying the private sector.
Join me, Camilla, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. And this report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have the former Liberal Democrat Minister, Norman
that's
Baker.
Nonsense. That's not what he's known for.
And the medical writer, Dr. Renee Hundekamp.
You're an expert on trains. You know so much about so many things. And the good lady doctor, you're a GP, and one of the stories we want to talk about, Renee, is the NHS, and this is reported in the Times, in the Telegraph, and the front of a good few pages. What are they saying?
They're saying that faith in the NHS has dropped to an all-time low, that only 1 in 4 people still actually have trust in it. And I'm actually surprised it's that high, to be honest with you. I really am. So only 24% of people are now satisfied with the NHS, and I'm staggered that they could find that many people, because I see on a day-to-day basis that nothing is working. The gaps are huge. Patients are just falling through them and not being able to...
I'll tell you one of the reasons it's not working, right? So you're a GP, yeah?
I am.
And at the moment, people are coming to see you about what?
So the bulk of my list at the moment will be coughs and colds.
Right. Why is that even allowed?
I agree.
Oh, good. No, that's good. So I thought it was going to be controversial there. I think if you have a cough or cold, you go to your chemist. That's it. You basically go to your chemist. You shouldn't be allowed to see the doctor with a cough or cold.
Well, I agree with that as well. But there's more than that. If you look at the fact that the social services element of our society has been neglected, there's a whole lot of pressure put on the NHS and people who should be dealt with in a different way. That doesn't help. I don't think the NHS has been very good at dealing with preventative medicine over the years, and they deal with symptoms rather than causes. That's also a problem. Sometimes you argue that the drug companies got too much influence on the NHS, which doesn't help either.
Meaning what?
Well, meaning that they go in there and they want you to have a pharmaceutical solution to everything when it's not necessarily the best answer.
But what do they mean by... I mean, this was a report done by the King's Fund and the Nuffield Trust, and they said that the public were using this phrase, they felt they were in a toxic relationship...
I actually wrote that down.
...with the NHS. And that implies what? I mean, that the NHS is...
I read that as that they felt that they had to use it. It was there, but it was abusive in a way. And in a way it is, in that, you know, people really struggle to navigate it now because they just can't get through to anybody. They can't get their appointments. They wait forever. Even the minister that we had on who said the waiting list had come down, that's a nonsense too. What that means is they've moved people off of that initial waiting list onto the second one. But I think going back to your point, Eamonn, about coughs and colds, I think we are breeding a society now who cannot deal with a second of discomfort, and they expect there to be a magic bullet in the form of a pill. They normally think that's antibiotics. I now don't do antibiotics for colds where people are demanding it. I send them for a chest x-ray instead, which arguably costs the NHS more, but since November, I've only had 2 people that actually had an infection that needed antibiotics. It is a cold and it will get better, but people expect it to get better in 3 days. It's going to take 2 weeks, and the cough that you get can last for 6 to 8 weeks.
Right.
We need to re-educate people about self-care.
And is that adults? Because, I mean, I think if you've got kids with coughs and colds, from my point of view, I always think, is it strep A or something hideous going on, or, you know, tonsillitis needs treatment, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't.
Really?
No. So the evidence says that antibiotics for tonsillitis will reduce the symptoms by 9 to 16 hours. It will get better on its own in most cases.
Yeah. You see, Norman just raised something there which I hadn't thought of, and it is quite scary that you get pharmaceutical reps or whatever coming in and saying, drug reps, and they're saying, oh, use this one, this is great for coughs, get this, whatever.
Yeah, or for anything, as a matter of fact. I mean, I have to tell you, I use acupuncture every now and then, and I find acupuncture extremely useful and non-invasive. And I'd much rather use something like acupuncture than I would use a drug I don't know.
Does it not hurt you?
No, it doesn't hurt at all.
Well, it hurts me tremendously.
What do you think about acupuncture?
I think it's really interesting. I don't know how it works, but I think for some things it really does work. And I'm all for it. You know, even placebo, if it works, it doesn't matter, you know.
Right, I'll tell you what else doesn't work. Our rivers and the sewage in them. And this is a scandal. I just think people should be locked up for this. People who run these utility companies, and they do it for money, and they don't care about what happens to the environment. It's absolutely ghastly. Ghastly.
Well, you said what I wanted to say, Eamonn, in many words, because we got more than 4 million hours 4 million hours of raw sewage discharged into our rivers and seas last year. It's a record. It's the worst record ever, worst year ever for these sorts of discharges. At the same time, you've got Thames Water suggested the answer to this is to put bills up 40%, to get people to pay for this, and Ofwat apparently might go along with this. And Thames Water, of course, has also had a record of giving shareholders more money in order to keep them on board.
And then you hear that the boat race this weekend, you're getting these dangerous levels of E. coli in the capital's river.
Look, the bottom line is this. This water industry should never have been privatised, because if you give an absolute monopoly on a key public service...
So we nationalise it again, you think?
No, they couldn't do that. They wouldn't be able to nationalise.
Well, they may have to, because Thames Water's back to go bankrupt, so they may have to do that.
They have to get 25 years' notice if you renationalise.
If they go bankrupt, they can't do anything about it. They'll have to deal with it. But look, I mean, over the last 30, 40 years since it's been private, what's happened? They've prioritised giving money to their directors, they've prioritised giving money to shareholders, they've not invested in what they should have invested in. That's the record of the water industry.
Well, and I think that's a really interesting point, because the headlines in the paper today suggest that this has happened because of global warming and hot weather. And that's actually not what they're saying. They're saying that they think it's because not enough money has gone into building storm tanks and other infrastructure to avoid these things. But we've been giving masses of money to the shareholders and the people running it.
Totally. It's absolutely disgrace. But, you know, the really depressing thing about this is I don't know what the Environmental Agency does, the Environment Agency, but they don't seem to have any teeth, and there doesn't seem to be any will. A lot of people tut and say, oh, it's terrible. Terrible, this.
They say they're in the middle of a criminal investigation, the Environment Agency, into potentially illegal discharges. But the Environment Agency has been cut significantly in terms of its capacity. It's got far fewer people than it used to have 15 years ago. They can't do as much as they should do.
Right, let's talk about Prince Harry. I saw yesterday the headline and all of this involved in some sex trafficking case, and my heart sank, and I thought, uh-oh. But actually, this, we've decided, is a non-story.
It's a non-story. I mean, essentially, he went to parties that P. Diddy hosted. P. Diddy used his name to say, look, Prince Harry is coming, come to my party. I mean, all of us who have worked in this industry have probably been to a party where there have been unsavoury people, and it isn't our fault and we haven't done anything wrong. So I think it's, you know, I have a lot of bad things to say about Harry, but on this occasion, I think this is a non-story.
Here's an interesting story. The BBC could make wealthier people pay more for the licence fee.
Well, it's a question of whether you believe in a flat tax, effectively, or whether you believe in a graduated tax, and you believe that people who are best able to bear the burden should pay more. That's the issue that Tim Davie, the Director General, has raised. Amongst other things, he also raised the issue of the fact that the BBC has had a third of its income removed in the last 15 years, which I don't think is very helpful.
They should have a third of its services removed, and it should be there to do things that it really should be there for, which is like local journalism, you know, local news.
Yes, they've cut local radio dramatically, which I think is a wrong answer. You know, if we're going to talk about British and soft power, what the BBC does, which has got a value abroad, has been to represent Britain. And they've been cut back on BBC World. They've merged it with BBC World Service in a way. It's not a healthy organisation.
No. Norman and Renee, we'll have more from them just after 8:30. For now, here's Greg with the weather.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Low pressure continues to dominate the weather pattern through today. Further spells of rain, heavy showers, blustery winds over the next few days as well. So looking at the bigger picture, we do have rain across northern and western parts of the UK this morning. Some localised flooding possible across parts of Northern Ireland in particular as the heavy rain from overnight slowly clears. Some bright spells developing as we move into the afternoon, but this will trigger some heavy thundery showers with some hail possible. With brisk southerly winds, it will feel quite chilly in the south and the west. Here, highs of 11 or 12 Celsius. In any brighter skies, we could see highs of 13 or 14 in a few sheltered spots. Into the evening time, further heavy showers push northwards across the country, these merging into some longer spells of rain. And then during the early hours, this batch of wet weather moves into central southern parts of England and Wales. Could be heavy at times, so a cloudy night here, but clearing skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. A touch of frost and some fog here as temperatures fall close to, if not below, freezing. So a north-south split to start Thursday. Wet and windy weather across parts of Wales and England. Brighter skies Northern Ireland and Scotland, and then these weather systems slowly push northwards as we go through the day. Further wet and windy weather pushing into central southern England. Gales along some southern coasts at times too. The best of the drier weather holding on across northern Scotland, and for most temperatures around 12 or 13. See you soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be a winner just like Phil?
Obviously, whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
Enter our massive spring giveaway. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finances a spring boost. We'll also send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. You'll also get a garden gadget package. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. The time creeping up to 8 o'clock on this Wednesday, 27th of March.
You are tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel, and you're very welcome.
OK, here are headlines this morning. Christianity conversion criticism. The Home Office accuses the Church of undermining the asylum system.
That's after the Clapham chemical attacker was allowed to remain in Britain despite lying and failing a Christianity test. Earlier, we spoke to a government minister about it.
We can't have is a system driven by credulous clerics and lefty lawyers, which is precisely why this government is taking forward legislation that will ensure that people like Azidi should never be in this country in the first place.
A double departure for Rishi Sunak. The exit of two more Tory ministers forces the Prime Minister into a mini reshuffle just before Easter.
The Duke of Sussex is dragged into the Diddy lawsuit. Prince Harry's been named in the rap star's legal proceedings, alleging that Sean Diddy Coombs used his name to give his sex trafficking parties legitimacy.
In football, Wales failed to secure a place at Euro 2024 after losing their playoff against Poland in a heartbreaking penalty shootout. More on that shortly.
And as hospitals give free vapes in a bid to help thousands quit smoking, we've been asking whether or not they should be provided free to smokers on the NHS.
And are you being shortchanged in a new Easter egg shrinkflation? Some Easter eggs are costing 50% more this year, while others are smaller. Tell us about it.
And in sport, so there'll be no welcome in the hillsides and no welcome in the Vales. As Wales I nearly sang it. As poleaxed on penalties, young Kobe Mainoo's probably played his way into the England Euro squad as they draw with Belgium, and a top golfer chugs beer at a top ice hockey event.
There we've got heavy rain and showers in the forecast today, but some sunshine too. Find out all the weather details coming up in the programme soon.
OK, a big talking point for us this morning, besides Easter eggs and shrinkflation above. You know, I remember Easter eggs used to be so thick you would break your teeth on them. Or maybe I was so young that my teeth were falling out anyway at that stage. But, I mean, things like, you know, I used to remember getting Cadbury's Dairy Milk or, what was the other brand? Dairy Box, there was another one. And the chocolate was so thick, Mars bar stuff you couldn't eat. It was absolutely so thick. Boom, your teeth would break on it. Gone are the days, though, with shrinkflation with that and just chocolate bars getting thinner and thinner.
We are having a big discussion as well this morning about asylum seekers, specifically this chemical attacker who was a convicted sex offender. We can speak to the Labour Shadow Minister in all of this, speaking to Jim McMahon, Labour's Shadow Local Government Minister, to get his take in all of this. Is this a failing of the asylum system, of the church, of the ECHR? What would Labour have done differently?
Well, the fact is that the asylum system is in absolute chaos. We're seeing too many people who are on the backlog list for their asylum applications to be processed. We're seeing just a sheer number of people who are on that list being distributed around communities in temporary accommodation in hotels. That's causing a huge issue in terms of community cohesion and also local economies. And frankly, all of that is a result of a government that's completely lost control of our asylum system.
Right, so what would you do to make sure that this wouldn't happen again? Because we know you are voting against the legislation the government's bringing in, which would mean instant deportation for anyone crossing the channel illegally. How can you reassure our viewers this morning that there wouldn't be any more Abdullah Zaidis under a Labour government?
Well, the most important thing is that you have a robust system in place to actually administer the applications that are coming in. If you have a system that's completely overwhelmed, where you have over 100,000 people on the backlog waiting list, the only thing that you can do is to try and skim through them to try and reduce it down for political reasons. What we need to do is to have a proper system in place of reviewing the applications, make sure that they're bona fide, and make sure that those who are seeking asylum are genuine asylum seekers, that they're given support and the rest of it when they are allowed to be here. But where they're not, because for whatever reason they don't meet the standard, we don't think that they're safe to be in the country, that we take action. That's what the public would expect. But that isn't what we're seeing under the current government. We're seeing absolute gimmick after gimmick, headline after headline. But the result is that in my community, the local hotel is still being used for temporary accommodation because the government have lost control.
What I'm feeling from you, Jim, is that you're basically looking at a department which you feel is woefully understaffed and therefore they're not able to carry out the procedures properly. So it doesn't really matter in terms of whether people believe in Labour or not. You're actually looking at the people who have to staff and decide on these things, and obviously you feel there's a shortcoming.
But the fact is that the government are accountable. They set the departmental budget, they set the legislation that the department has to follow, and they give leadership. And what the Home Office civil servants will be looking at with this government is a government that is so busy and preoccupied with chasing headlines and flights to Rwanda that they're not dealing with the underlying pressures that are in the system to actually deal with it. And when you have that backlog waiting list, impacting on local communities with the use of temporary accommodation, when you have people who are genuine asylum seekers, who are fleeing persecution, who are being left in limbo, that is not a fair system for anybody. And the buck stops with a Home Secretary who needs to stop using gimmicks and actually come forward with a plan that can work.
Except you are stopping or trying to stop or voting against legislation that the government says would deal with this problem. And I just come back to your point about the way you would tackle this if Labour was in power. You're saying you need more staff, you need proper time to assess these cases. Well, are you saying then that this case wasn't assessed properly? Because the judge is using a point of law, and that's why I'm asking you about legislation, the government's role in all of this. They're saying that there was evidence presented in court that he was a converted Christian, even though he was a convicted sex offender, and that there were doubts about the authenticity of his Christianity. There was enough evidence, they thought, under the Human Rights Act to allow him to stay. So what would you do to change? I'm still not clear, under a Labour government, that would change that judgment.
I mean, to be absolutely clear, if somebody is not safe to be here, then they should not be here. It's as clear as that.
So you need to change the law?
I don't know why the government aren't providing the leadership that they need to be clear about what's right and what's wrong. But also, and the danger with this is, for those who are genuinely in need of support, who are fleeing persecution, they're held up in a system that frankly isn't fit for purpose because the government is chasing headlines and gimmicks instead of actually repairing it. You know, they could easily, for instance, have processing centres offshore so people aren't forced to pay criminal gangs to bring them across the channel into the country illegally. But they're not doing that. They're paying millions of pounds to the, on Rwanda flights. What, for a gimmick? It's not going to fundamentally change the system. It's not going to deal with a backlog. And they know that. They're just trying desperately to crawl over the line to the next election, just hoping that they're not found out. Well, they are found out because people know, ultimately, that the local hotel down the road is full to the brink of asylum seekers because of the backlog asylum process that the government have brained over. They know that. They see it in their communities. And so whatever the government say about the Rwanda flights, about what's right and what's wrong, the evidence doesn't support that action is being taken where it's needed.
Jim, I love when people tell it as it is, and this is the truth that doesn't get coverage in mainstream media. I've told this story a few times on the programme. Belfast, went back to Belfast a month ago, where I'm from, and 17 hotels, 17 eating houses and call-in hotels. When I say hotels, they're eating establishments as well with, 20 rooms attached and whatever it happens to be. 17 of them bought out by the government to house migrants just around Belfast. Not a word about this going on. People just see that their local facilities disappear and the bill has to be paid, whether anybody says or not. The bill has to be paid to house these people.
Well, I mean, to be clear, when we talk about these people, a significant number of people who are currently in temporary accommodation, when their application is then assessed, will be allowed leave to remain because they will be genuine asylum seekers. So we need to separate out the system from the individuals. I'm sure the individuals who are in single accommodation hotel rooms, sharing a room sometimes with people they don't know, would prefer for that not to be the system. This is a result of the government failure. But we can't ignore the community impact. It's a significant impact when a hotel that provided jobs for local people, that is a venue in my community for Christians and for weddings and for other events, is completely taken out of the economy. And I was in Belfast yesterday, a wonderful place, a beautiful part of the UK where tourism is thriving. They need the hotel for the local economy and for tourism, but because the government hasn't got a grip of the asylum system, I'm afraid they're forced then to give the hotels over to the government and Serco and other contractors for this use. In the end, we've got to repair a system because the British people, I believe, are compassionate and caring. And when people genuinely need help and support to flee persecution, they will stand absolutely by their side. But they don't want the system to be abused and they want the government to be on the side of what's right. Okay. And frankly, it's the government that's failed on this agenda.
OK, Jim, so you're talking about staffing, resourcing these departments. Thank you very much indeed. Viewers, listeners, have your say. gbviews@gbnews.com.
We're going to get the views now of Father David Palmer. Good morning to you. Look, the characterisation of this, I don't know how much it worries you. There's a feeling in this country that people are on their knees to avoid becoming deportees. They are praying so that they are staying here in the UK. Are you being used?
I think one of the problems is we keep referring to the church as if it's a sort of monolithic organisation. There's a big difference. So the Catholic Church, for example, we have an informal process to become a Christian. A course can last like 7-8 months called RCIA. Another little independent Baptist church might set itself up last week and baptise someone in a shopping centre. And I think there's a bit of I think the Home Office should be able to make a sort of distinction, really, if there'd been religious literacy. And that's what we're talking about, really. And we have a guy here who failed the basic Christianity test, and then because some independent Baptist minister said, oh, he's a good bloke, the judge ruled in his favour. And I think that's just, I don't think the fault's the church. I think the fault is the Home Office. And the church isn't a a department of the state, would be my point.
Father, it's interesting. Just want to be very clear about what you're saying here. The newspaper headlines are saying churches are undermining the asylum system. You don't believe that that is the case?
Well, I don't think it's the church's job to be asylum control. You know, we have people paid to do that. And, you know, we do get genuine converts. I mean, that's one of the myths going on. You know, the idea that all converts are fakes. I can just testify from my own experience that's not true. But at the same time, of course, we get frauds. But ultimately, the church isn't the body that's been formed and paid by the government to enforce border control. That's not our role. And I think that for the Home Office to try and shift the blame, I think just passing the buck.
Is the church being used because a lot of these asylum seekers can claim if they're Christians, they would be persecuted if they were sent back to their country of origin? So it's a sort of form of defence if they convert.
Yeah, certainly. And of course, that's true. If they really do convert, some of them will get persecuted if they go back to their country. But what I'm saying, I suppose, is the church. So in the Catholic Church, we have a 7-month process for somebody that wants to become a Catholic. If they come to the whole process over 7 months and they come to Mass every week and they come to all the course, at the end of it, unless you've got a very good reason to say they're blatantly faking it, that's not, I can't see in people's souls. That's not the responsibility of the church. The responsibility of the church is to spread the gospel. It's the responsibility of the state to decide whether someone's should stay in the country.
Yeah. And also, Father, the Catholic diaspora around the country. You go to any, I'm a Catholic, you go to a Catholic church, particularly in big cities like London, or, I mean, even in Cheltenham or various places like this, and so much of the congregation is obviously not Indigenous, it's obviously not from England, say, for instance. And that's understandable because these are people who are Catholics in Brazil, in Poland, in various things, and they need somewhere to worship. And usually their sense of worship is much greater than a lot of people here, where the numbers are falling off and dying off. And those people have to be catered for and taken seriously.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a parish in Nottingham, and we're full of Indians from Kerala, from Catholics from Nigeria. I mean, it's a hugely multicultural community. I would say one of the most effective multicultural communities that you're going to find. Everyone is together with a joint cause. Now, obviously, one or two people could slip in. That's possible. And we can't take passports at the door of the church. But the vast majority of people there are working in our hospitals, they're working in our schools, that they're genuine Catholics who are coming together to worship from all over the world. And that's the kind of integration that we want, actually, as a society. So, I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Father, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Thank you.
On to Prince Harry now. He's been named in a bombshell US court document relating to the rapper P. Diddy, real name's Sean Combs. OK, these documents in the court, they mention guests were drawn to Combs's alleged sex trafficking parties because of his access to celebrities and people like Prince Harry. Royal commentator Angela Levin is with us now. Angela, I'm looking at this and I think this is so not a story.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, as Harry's biographer and seeing the big change in him after he got married and how awful he's been to the royal family, I'm very quick to sort of carry on saying how naughty and spiteful he's been. This time, I think it's absolutely not true. It's ridiculous, really. It was a concert to celebrate what would have been his mother's 36th birthday.
Yeah.
And he went along there with a girlfriend and he was there. And obviously, he was very grateful for this. Who wouldn't do something like that? And that's the only time he's seen Diddy. So I think to put him into the problems that will be found in very shortly is ridiculous.
You've just said something which sort of hit me quite soberly there. Would have been her 36th birthday. So she was dead before she hit 40.
Yes.
Gosh. Yeah, so young.
He was very upset when he got to the same age.
Yeah.
And he realised that, what he had in common with her was the age and how terrible, because he realised he was young and how terrible it was that she'd lost her life after that. And indeed, it's true.
We should be clear, Prince Harry isn't being accused of anything in these court documents, because, you know, there's a lot of clickbait out there. I mean, just look at the front of the Sun there, Harry named in P. Diddy sex traffic case, and your heart skips a beat and you think, uh-oh, what have we got here? What's he done now? But actually, he's being named as a dignitary or equivalent to that, a celebrity that people could rub shoulders with at one of these unsavoury parties.
He was named that he would encourage people to come because of who he is.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he's done anything, and he hasn't done anything. He's not going to be accused of anything. And I think that, you know, we've had our go at him all the time, and I don't think that's really fair to have him on the front and, you know, attack him or insinuate that he was responsible.
Yeah. What else have you got that's in your head, Royal Circle-wise?
Well, Camilla, Queen Camilla, tomorrow she's going off to give all the money, Maundy Thursday.
Oh, yes, yes.
And she'll have a red purse and a white purse. It's the first time. This was one of the Queen's most favourite things to do.
So this is Holy Thursday.
Yes, it's Holy Thursday. Before Holier Friday, really.
Yes.
And you have to give the same number of people as the age of the monarch. So she will be giving 75 men, 75 women money in these little purses. And it's a very, very important job. And King Charles can't do it. He would always, the monarch does it. And there she is going to do it for him, and it'll be very quiet, and she's very good with old people. She spent a lot of COVID talking to people who were old and on their own via Zoom. Very kind, and so that's very good.
And the good news, of course, is we've been told, see the King with Her Majesty the Queen at the Easter service on Sunday. Do you think that will go some way to reassuring people who might feel unsettled in the wake of the difficult news we've had recently?
I think it will. I think it's a very important day, and if he can manage there and if he smiles and he's OK, I think it will make a huge difference. But then they mustn't expect too much, because there's only going to be a few royals. He's going to lead them, but we don't know how many will be. There won't be very many. And you have to take it carefully. A man of that age, he needs to be very careful. And it's particularly meeting people and being close to people. So he will be, the people who stand on either side will have to be right back. So he's got plenty of room.
I suppose the concern is medically catching something while he's undergoing treatments.
Yes, I mean, you're much more... Your body is easier to accept any germ that's wandering around. So that's what he really must look after. But he is so bored, he can't bear it. He's never in his life been so much at home and not being able to go out and meet people. His life is meeting people, talking to people of all types, all ages. But he can't do that, and it's very, very frustrating.
And reports that he's very emotional at the moment. He's really heartbroken for Catherine, for all that she's having to go through, heartbroken for his son, for all he's having to go through, his grandchildren, of course, also for himself not being able to fulfil this role he's been waiting so long to do.
Yes, also for William, because, you know, he can understand the pressure that he's under and what's expected of him. It's very, very difficult for the senior royals. Meanwhile, Camilla, just to end on a nice note, is that she has these book clubs, and she got somebody to look into how good reading is. And they said that if anybody reads, any child reads, it makes them much more relaxed, gives them confidence, and they can feel part of an association if they do. The results came out last night. And I think that's really interesting, because you wonder, you know, people stop reading, really. They just want 2 lines in TikTok and that's it. But, you know, if you do read a bit, it helps a lot of your body, not just gives you a story.
Yeah, she loves reading, doesn't she? She's an avid reader. She was hosting this event at Clarence House last night, Joanna Lumley and others, all big readers, sort of celebrating novels and things. Do you think that will inspire people?
Well, I think it inspired the people who were there. I went to one of them. It was absolutely wonderful. All my favourite authors was there.
Like who?
She pointed me out, see her. She's doing the biography. Some people clapped, some people laughed. I thought, oh, God, you know. But that was very nice of them to invite me. But she loves that. She loves getting people together on a topic. and then actually talking about it. And her father taught her that the main thing in life is to learn to read, and that's what she's done. And I think it's a wonderful thing to take up.
OK. Well, Angela, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Lovely listening to you. Thank you very much. We'll see you again soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, is it going to be a lovely day weather-wise? Greg Dewhurst has your forecast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Low pressure continues to dominate the weather pattern through today. Further spells of rain, heavy showers, blustery winds over the next few days as well. So looking at the bigger picture, we do have rain across northern and western parts of the UK this morning. Some localised flooding possible across parts of Northern Ireland in particular as the heavy rain from overnight slowly clears. Some bright spells developing as we move into the afternoon, but this will trigger some heavy thundery showers with some hail possible. With brisk southerly winds, it will feel quite chilly in the south and the west. Here, highs of 11 or 12 Celsius. In any brighter skies, we could see highs of 13 or 14 in a few sheltered spots. Into the evening time, further heavy showers push northwards across the country, these merging into some longer spells of rain. And then during the early hours, this batch of wet weather moves into central southern parts of England and Wales. Could be heavy at times, so a cloudy night here, but clearing skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. A touch of frost and some fog here as temperatures fall close to, if not below, freezing. So north-south split to start Thursday. Wet and windy weather across parts of Wales and England. Brighter skies Northern Ireland and Scotland, and then these weather systems slowly push northwards as we go through the day. Further wet and windy weather pushing into central southern England. Gales along some southern coasts at times too. The best of the drier weather holding on across northern Scotland, and for most temperatures around 12 or 13. See you soon.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Great British Giveaway. It all finishes on Friday for this month. So here we are in the final week.
Yes, and there's lots on offer. You could win gadgets, a shopping spree and £12,345 in cash. Make sure you're in it to win it.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Well, not only that, but this weekend is also Easter, and only a few days away now, and Easter eggs are the big subject that we're going to be talking about after the break. How good, bad, thick or slim is your egg? Next.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Has the NHS killed your relative and then lied to you about it? There is an alleged cover-up culture in the NHS. They lie to you about why your loved one died, about poor care, then bury documents with evidence in them, and they try to silence staff who speak out. This is according to the NHS Ombudsman. There are around 11,000 avoidable deaths every year. 11,000. Someone's mum dies, their children know something dodgy happened, and then they're met with a rotten culture, including the altering of care plans, the disappearance of crucial documents, and complete denials. They lie to you, but they really get away with it because the NHS is like a religion, and people dare not criticise it. You'd be accused of NHSophobia. That annual budget is around £180 billion, and we now have about 2 million people working for the NHS. They cannot keep blaming everything on being underfunded and understaffed. If they're covering up medical negligence, it means the problem doesn't get dealt with and it keeps happening. And that is the fault of the NHS managers, the people who run it. They've got the money for 837 non-clinical staff working at English hospitals on the highest paid Band 9 contracts, which is between £99,000 and £115,000 a year. How many nurses would that pay for? How many junior doctors? And they've got the time on their hands to think about making the NHS the world's first carbon-neutral health service. They've got time to consider whether women in labour should be picked up by an electric ambulance that might have to be recharged en route to the hospital. There are NHS managers with a budget of £180 billion, 2 million members of staff, and they're crying about being understaffed and under-resourced. If they spent more time looking after patients instead of finding ways to cover up avoidable deaths, then maybe we'd have a better health service.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
You don't need me to tell you, if you're out and about shopping for Easter eggs, they're more expensive this year. Some people reckon by about 12%.
Yeah, that's according to the consumer watchdog Which. And with Easter only a few days away and millions of eggs still to be sold across the country, our West Midlands reporter Jack Carson has been to meet a chocolatier trying to manage the rush.
For real-life Willy Wonka Joe Vaughan, all hands are on deck, with plenty of eggs still to make, and Easter only days away. He's been running 1683 Chocolate Place in Knowle, Solihull for more than 8 years, and with Brits across the UK estimated to spend £415 million on Easter eggs this year, chocolatiers like Joe are having a busy time.
This year's definitely busier than last year and previous years before that, which is fantastic. People really seem to be wanting to appreciate good quality chocolate and finding more independence to support.
However, for the industry as a whole, the impact of inflated costs across the board cannot be overstated, with consumer watchdog Which reporting a 12.6% rise in Easter chocolate this year.
Well, obviously, as we all know, last year there was a massive energy crisis. I mean, our energy bills here went up 5 times the amount that they were before, which was ridiculous. This year we're facing a particular difficult time with cocoa, which is obviously the main ingredient within the chocolate. That's gone up significantly over the last year. This time last year it was $2,800 roughly per tonne. It's just peaked this week at $8,800 per tonne.
But will inflated prices put us off our Easter chocolates? Between 80 to 90 million Easter eggs are expected to be sold in the UK this year. For the average child, it works out at more than 8 eggs each. That is a lot of chocolate. In Birmingham, increased costs are causing a dilemma for some.
I've literally been thinking about this today. I don't know whether to go big because I've got a toddler or whether to give him something healthy and not give him any eggs at all. Is that mean?
I love chocolate, don't get me wrong, but I'll probably just buy a pack of Magic Stars or something, like the Easter egg.
Usually I'd buy more, but because of the cost of living and everything going up, I've had to reduce what I get for people.
Despite some price concerns, the Easter Bunny will still be busy this weekend, leaving eggs for millions across the country. Jack Carson, GB News, Birmingham.
I'm going to bite those chocolate ears off.
I did find the most beautiful Easter eggs. Terry's orange eggs, not
the chocolate orange.
Not the chocolate orange that they do. They do like Cadbury's mini eggs, but they're orange. Terry's, it's absolutely delicious. We've got Artisan chocolatier, which means she's a posh egg maker. That's Lisa Green. Lisa, very good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Lisa, I don't know where to begin with. Certainly things are smaller, or they're more expensive, or maybe both.
I think it's a question of both. I mean, as we know, food prices have gone up, and that has obviously affected the price of cocoa, which has gone up by about 12% over the past year. In addition to that, I would say 70% of the world's cocoa production comes from West Africa, where there has been a famine, which basically has reduced the availability a lot. So the challenge for especially artisan chocolate makers is to maintain standards and have a high-quality product that people are willing to pay for.
High quality, and how much could they be willing to pay? What's your most expensive egg?
Well, the most expensive egg I've seen this year is £375, and it weighs about 5 kilograms.
OK.
So that's a very,
What about your most
egg.
expensive egg? What are people shelling out for a Lisa Green egg?
For a Lisa Green egg, they pay just under £30, but for that they get a hand-painted egg with gold flakes on it, which is real gold, so it's good inflation-proof product, and hand-painted salted mini eggs. So it's a very bespoke product.
Yeah, so it's individual. It's,
yes.
You're not going to go out and get that in any supermarket.
No. No.
Yeah. So the thing is, Isabel, what do you do now as a parent of young kids? I used to, a lot of people don't show their eggs until Easter Sunday, but in our house, my dad, we used to have them up over the fireplace and whatever, and they were there for a couple of weeks before Easter.
Well, of course, my children are listening because they're going on the school run as we speak, so we wait to see what the Easter Bunny brings on Easter Sunday morning. But the Easter Bunny's usually quite generous, and there's usually quite a few. So we'll have to see what the Easter Bunny does. And, of course, that is related to good behaviour, children, in case you're listening. But, you know, we were talking a little bit about some of the more high street chains, perhaps, of the other chocolates. We've got a Tony's Chocolonis here.
I tell you, that's a disgrace. That was in a box, right? That's in a box. No tin foil on it at all. No wrapping.
Isn't that better in this day and age for the planet?
No, I think the whole thing is you disrobe. It's like a striptease, isn't it? You take the foil off the egg. That's all part of the loveliness of it all. Mum?
And then we've got a Lindt, which is... Are they Belgian or Swiss?
They're Swiss. They were Swiss. I'm not sure if they're Swiss anymore.
Master chocolatiers, yeah. And I noticed you have Belgian milk.
Yes.
But not Belgian chocolate cocoa in your eggs. What's the difference there? Is Belgian milk special?
No, it's not the milk, it's the quality of the cocoa.
Oh, okay.
So if I use chocolate for a chocolatier, there's a guarantee that it will have a certain percentage of cocoa powder in it. Unlike callets that you can buy in some supermarkets and you can make little cupcakes or little chocolates in plastic trays, they don't actually have the legal amount of cocoa in them. So milk has a bit less than dark.
Yeah.
But when you're an artisan, you can tailor your product according to whether you want it darker and stronger or creamier and less intense.
And what do you prefer?
I prefer milk, personally.
Interesting.
But a lot of it's quite interesting to look at the class aspect. Generally, people in the UK prefer milk. People in the upper echelons of society prefer dark.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that's not as nice, I have to say. Milk, I'm with you on that one. Easter eggs originate from Europe in the early 19th century, so that means 18-something and other. France and Germany took the lead in this, and the first Cadbury Easter eggs were made in 1875.
And Easter egg sales fell by 600,000 amid a consumer backlash over the rising cost of them and shrinkflation. We're interested to know at home, will you be buying fewer Easter eggs this year because they're so darned expensive? And also, which one's your favourite? Let us know your favourite type. Dark, milky, high-end, high street. You tell us your favourite. We'll read some of those out.
With that, we will take a break and then we'll be talking and taking a look at what's making the news with Rennie Henderkamp and Norman Baker next.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Alan Titchmarsh's pants have been censored. This is in North Korea. You're not allowed to look at Alan Titchmarsh's pants on the TV programme. Remember, he's 74 years of age. Norman Baker, Rennie Henderkamp here to look at stories making the news. Norman, why are Titch's pants titchier?
Well, because obviously his jeans, rather than his pants actually, his jeans are a symbol of Western imperialism, according to...
What, denim?
Yes, according to our North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un. Therefore he's had them blurred out. And the last time I remember having someone having trousers blurred out was actually Elvis Presley, back in, not that I was there at the time, back in the 50s, for gyrating too much. I don't think Alan Titchmarsh was gyrating, but nevertheless he was decadent. The other surprising thing to me, actually, is the North Korean television using the BBC production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were into gardening in North Korea.
It is. They're obviously not into jeans, because the picture that you'll see in the papers today just has this fuzz, just this blur.
Which we sort of associate with criminals.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like there's some sort of criminal activity going on down there.
And there has been a ban on this sort of thing, this decadence, since 1990 in North Korea. Right, there we go. Let's talk about pensions, Renee. Front page of the... don't know what that stands for anyway, front page somewhere or other. State pension age may rise. Why would it be rising?
So it has to rise, Eamonn, because we are an ageing population and our pension pot is one of the biggest outlays that we have of, taxpayers' money. And actually, I looked back at this, and in 1906, when they introduced the pension, or that government introduced the pension...
The Liberal government.
The Liberal government, let me not forget that. The average life expectancy was 51, and you were not allowed to collect...
Crikey.
You were not allowed to collect your pension until you were 70. So not many people collected it. Now we've got a life expectancy of 84, 83, 84, and we're collecting it at 66, and people are complaining. It has to go up, otherwise it is just an unaffordable Ponzi scheme that cannot be satisfied.
But everything's gone up as well, and people who thought that they would have a bit more leisure time, they'd be able to afford a bus tour or whatever it happens to be, now look, and every single penny counts for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I mean, Norman and I actually argued a little bit over the triple lock because I think our pensioners are thrown under the bus. Our state pension is one of the lowest in Europe. But being a realist, what we would like to do and what we can afford to do, unless people suddenly start having lots more children, we can't do.
Well, what was your argument in this discussion?
I think that pensioners have been relatively well looked after compared to other elements of society, mainly because they vote. And governments have been very careful not to alienate pensioners. And the winter fuel allowance, for example, is claimable by people who don't need it. People who are living, expats in the south of Spain can claim the winter fuel allowance. We need to be rational about these things. We can't afford everything. And that sort of thing should be, in my view, stopped. So,
see, Norman, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just putting a case as somebody who's approaching pension age. My mortgage has gone up hugely. It's trebled in what I have to repay every month now. So at times we may have thought, I've got a bit of extra cash or something, this might be okay. Don't have any extra cash. So many people.
I'm sure that's the case for some people, but I mean, you can find people all through society who've got mortgage problems and other problems meeting ends meet. I mean, I speak as a pensioner myself these days. I'm 66, so I've seen that at the sharp end talking to my friends. So,
but also the case I put to you, Norman, because Norman said that pensions should be means tested, which I think is an outrageous idea, is that I only will have a state pension. I don't have a private pension. I never have had one. I've probably paid in...
But you get an NHS pension?
No, I'm not in the NHS pension.
Oh, right. Oh.
So all I have is the state to rely on. But if it was means tested, I probably wouldn't get that either. And yet I've probably paid more tax than most across my life. So it doesn't seem particularly fair when you look at it that way. So the only fair way is that people carry on working longer.
Well, I mean, to be clear, I mean, what is absolutely clear to me is that things like the winter fuel allowance should be means tested. Whether the state pension should
I don't disagree with that.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the head of British Gas, his pay package. He'll not need a pension. 8.2 million. We'll be talking about that after this.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Tubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
This story caught my eye. Lloyds Bank, right, they own the insurance company Scottish Widows. They have now issued some kind of suggested guidance about which word to try and avoid upsetting people or perhaps be as inclusive as possibly can be. One of these words is widows, which really caught my eye because of the amount of stupidity. If you own a brand literally called Scottish Widows, you can't then be saying that the word widows is triggering and offensive. Anyway, because it is so ludicrous, I need to move over from that part. because I want to talk about the broader issue. So many organisations, they have what they call ESG. I'm going to bring a graphic up on the screen in case you're not familiar with what this is. But it's a sense of kind of government, and I would say it's almost like a spine. It underpins so much of what business does today. It stands for environmental, social and governance. And it's around things like how does a business perform when it comes to their environmental impact? How diverse are their employees? How diverse is their board? And so on and so forth. Do you think ESG is a force for good and much needed within business or not, Ben?
It is the introduction of systemic institutionalised prejudice in the United Kingdom, which is going to damage dreadfully our economy, but also our culture, our cohesion as a society, and it's undermining, again, coming back to it, the nation-state that is the United Kingdom. ESG has to be ditched.
Strong words. Judita, do you agree with him?
I don't agree, because I think that with ESG, when you have them, what you're having an increase in is specialists in ESG being introduced into companies to kind of imbricate it into how the company functions. If you're moving in a direction of making your company's functionality be optimized in a way that is inclusive of anyone from any background who has the qualifications to occupy that position, that is a good thing.
So, £8 million he's due this year. He's the head of Centrica, which was British Gas. Norman, what do you think?
Another unsuccessful privatisation is what I think about it. Chris O'Shea, his name is, Britain's luckiest man. Really? £8.2 million he's being paid this year, or last year, in fact, which is £22,465 per day, which is about the same of a newly qualified nurse. Gets in a year.
I was going to say.
So there you are. You can take your choice. Which is worth more? A nurse over a year or him for one day? It's outrageous, of course, and it's made up from three elements: £800,000 salary, 1.4 million in bonuses, no doubt for looking after his shareholders, and then the rest of it's linked to the share price of Centrica.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind this pay packet if this guy ran the company so well that bills for the everyday working person were almost non-existent because he was that brilliant. Then fine, he deserves every penny. But whilst bills are as high as they've ever been, people are struggling to put food on their table. And this man will be, as Norman rightly says, making big payouts by his company to shareholders. Then this is absolutely outrageous.
Rennie, the Mail are reporting today, or there's an opinion piece by Sarah Vine, as how the Chinese view British people. How do they view British people?
Well, I think Sarah Vine rightly summarised it nicely. You know, she says that they view us as a nation of soft-bellied layabouts who are absolutely addicted to, obviously, their fast clothes and everything else they supply us, our phones, TikTok and everything else, whilst they don't live that way at all.
OK.
So we have outsourced all of our manufacturing to them, so everybody expects now that they can order everything today and it arrives by Amazon tomorrow. Always from China, usually. And we're slowly sleepwalking into a situation where everything is controlled by China, from our electric cars, which we discovered last week they could just switch off, to not being reliant on our own fuel. So that's all coming from abroad as well. So I think Sarah Vine, and I don't often agree with Sarah Vine, is actually right. We have sleptwalked into the situation where we are absolutely reliant on the Chinese.
We sleptwalked, or have we been led by our now Foreign Secretary, David Cameron?
Well, I think it's both. I think because everybody keeps raising flags about how dangerous this is and this bit from China, but nobody does anything about it until we've got to the point where we're so reliant, we almost can't see a way out.
What is the answer?
David Cameron tried to stop me and Tim Lawton, actually, from meeting the Dalai Lama in private because it might upset the Chinese when we were ministers.
Crikey.
It was outrageous.
Sorry, did you meet the Dalai Lama?
We did meet the Dalai Lama, but not on that particular occasion, but we did. But it caused a furore in government at the time. And Tim Lawton and I wrote a letter to Cameron afterwards, complained about this. We got palmed off on William Hague, the Foreign Secretary at the time, who was quite sympathetic, I think, rather than David Cameron. But, you know, we have gone far too far with the Chinese. We have. And the story in the paper we haven't talked about today, it's in the news anyway, is this Slovakian invention of this flying taxi. This taxi, which is a car and then produces wings within 2 minutes and takes off, and it's already been successfully test flown. That's just been sold to the Chinese. The Chinese are controlling huge amounts of natural resources in Africa. It's a new imperialism, actually. They're controlling these African countries, very disadvantageous deals, but they can't afford to pay back, and the Chinese can come and say, well, we'll take over your port. This is happening all the time. And the Chinese are, in fact, becoming very, very powerful in the world. They can overtake America. And what worries me, actually, is the fact that the Chinese leadership is deeply, deeply undemocratic. The Chinese population is under deep control, and they don't respect human rights at all.
Do you think the economy is going to take over the United States? They've got an ageing population, really high unemployment, and they do have a lot of economic problems post-pandemic.
They do have those.
They shut down so many of their cities.
They do have those, but they've also got huge control over their population, which is pretty compliant. If you see Chinese people in London, they will stop at lights and not cross the road when it says red, even if there's no traffic. Whereas British people, in my view, quite sensibly, make a judgment there's no traffic and cross the road.
Right. It's those flying cars. I can't get my head around.
That sounds horrendous.
I can see the technology working. I can understand how the technology works, but then the idea that any mistake at all and you're dead, and collisions.
Or if you hit a drone, this is the thing. You hit a drone.
They would be drones.
No, you can run into a drone, mightn't you?
Oh, yeah, of course.
But that's if you can actually get enough space on a road to have a runway to take off of.
Well, some of them are vertical takeoffs that are being developed.
I mean, it'll be controlled by AI. I don't know. I can't cope with it. Let's stick with the stuff I can get my head around. This is a football got kicked over a garden fence. A dad went to try and retrieve it, and he's being sued by his neighbours. Yeah,
this is a very unfortunate neighbour dispute, and this is a man who's now facing, well, £19,000 of damages, which has been awarded against him. He said he'd run up a £40,000 legal bill. The court's not yet decided whether he should pay the neighbour's bill as well. He might have to do that. And he's thinking of appealing. So he must have more money than sense.
Did he get the ball back?
They don't say that, actually. It's a very good question. They don't say that, whether he gets the ball back.
The mums.
But, they've clearly been not very good neighbours to each other.
Well, I think the sad thing about this is just that, isn't it? Whenever you see a neighbour dispute, be it over a hedge or a ball, you think to yourself as a reasonable person, how on earth did this actually get to the court in the first place? Where was somebody going around? Where were the women going around to say, look, can we talk about this? It's my son's football. Yes, you shouldn't kick it in your garden. We're sorry. It won't happen again. Please.
Yeah, bit of sense there.
But maybe it has happened a few times as we move on.
Cherry on the cake.
With the report on this, I mean, who knows? I do know, I can remember as a youngster playing in the street and what few cars there were in the street in those days. But when I think of how we used to kick the ball and it would hit the side panelling of somebody's car or whatever, and obviously dent and do things. I mean, it seemed to be I was just prone in our back garden to smashing windows.
Oh, God.
You know, we had the goals in a certain position and obviously didn't always score, and the ball would hit our back window and then that was it.
And did you also nip over the fence and nick someone's apples from their trees?
My brother Bran did. He was, but I used to wind him up to get him to do it. But yeah, that was all part and parcel of it, yeah.
I think live and let live, I think, is the answer here, really. I mean, this is outrageously stupid on people's behalf.
I do remember as a child when I sprayed my neighbour's washing on the line on a hot sunny day with the hose, and I remember her being at the front door with a wet dress screaming at my mum. She's like, it's a very sunny day. It will dry soon.
It's OK. Oh, my goodness. So you must have been bad neighbours then. That must have been the cherry on the cake.
It just was too tempting.
OK. OK, well, we're 30 seconds before we say goodbye to you. So thank you very much indeed, both of you, for going through the papers this morning and being with us throughout the day, which
Thanks
is
for
great.
the chocolate.
Oh, yes, take some chocolates with you. We've just been munching through. I have to just update the viewers that we've been very much enjoying these hand-painted salted caramel pink. Oh, do you want to go on? You sample one live or now? I don't want to wrap my teeth. Go on then. You have another one.
Right,
these are your favourite. Or did you prefer?
No, I prefer the ones in that box.
Oh, sorry, right. Pass Norman the other box.
Right.
It's the chilly ones for me.
Lovely.
Here's Greg with the weather.
Thank you very much.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there. Welcome to your latest GB News weather. Low pressure continues to dominate the weather pattern through today. Further spells of rain, heavy showers, blustery winds over the next few days as well. So looking at the bigger picture, we do have rain across northern and western parts of the UK this morning. Some localised flooding possible across parts of Northern Ireland in particular as the heavy rain from overnight slowly clears. Some bright spells developing as we move into the afternoon, but this will trigger some heavy thundery showers with some hail possible. With brisk southerly winds, it will feel quite chilly in the south and the west. Here, highs of 11 or 12 Celsius. In any brighter skies, we could see highs of 13 or 14 in a few sheltered spots. Into the evening time, further heavy showers push northwards across the country, these merging into some longer spells of rain. And then during the early hours, this batch of wet weather moves into central southern parts of England and Wales. Could be heavy at times, so a cloudy night here, but clearing skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. A touch of frost and some fog here as temperatures fall close to, if not below, freezing. So a north-south split to start Thursday. Wet and windy weather across parts of Wales and England. Brighter skies Northern Ireland and Scotland, and then these weather systems slowly push northwards as we go through the day. Further wet and windy weather pushing into central southern England. Gales along some southern coasts at times too. The best of the drier weather holding on across northern Scotland, and for most temperatures around 12 or 13. See you soon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Serving police officers, showing that up to 20% of them are thinking about quitting the force and doing so within the next year or two. What on earth is going wrong? Problem, of course, is that those that go will be the experienced ones to be replaced by inexperienced ones. Kevin Hurley, former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Met Police, joins me from his home in Surrey. Kevin, this figure is shocking.
The terms and conditions have really dropped off under Theresa May's, what I would describe as an attack on the police service, where their pay has really dropped off, spending power down about 22% on what it once was. Worse still, the golden handcuffs, which were once the excellent police pension, have been taken away, and the pension is now much reduced. The other thing that's killing them is the constant media and activist battering for police officers. Off the back of that, one psychopath and the other, if you like, Tinder rapist, everybody now thinks the police are kind of all like that. What that means for the individual patrol officers, they're being given stick everywhere. For example, you know, their bosses left, right and centre are rolling over. Oh, yes, we're institutionally racist. What that means to a 25-year-old constable working in Balham High Street is everyone screaming at him, you're a racist pig. They get surrounded on the streets when they try and do a stop and search or an arrest. Add to that the fact that the criminal justice system is collapsing. They're tipping out the prisons with early releases. So, because of course there's no prison space, cases are taking years to get to court. They're getting derisory sentences because there's no room in the prisons. All of that's really demoralising for the police.
Good morning, welcome to the programme. It is 9 o'clock on Wednesday, the 27th of March. You're tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
And if you've had your breakfast, tell us what you had. Was it nice? Was it worth having? More and more people say they skip their breakfast in the morning. They see it as a meal that they don't need.
Yeah, fasting. Does it work?
OK. Leading our news for you this morning, this is what we've got. Christianity conversion criticism. The Home Office sources accuse the Church of undermining the asylum system.
That's after the Clapham chemical attacker was allowed to remain in Britain despite lying and failing a Christianity test. Earlier we spoke to the Minister of State for Science, Research and Innovation.
What we can't have is a system driven by credulous clerics and lefty lawyers, which is precisely why this government is taking forward legislation that will ensure that people like Azidi should never be in this country in the first place.
Political front.
Well, this case highlights how there is really an industry now that's sprung up challenging these carefully made Home Office decisions, from immigration lawyers and charities now to the church, all willing to go into bat for asylum seekers.
Thank you, Mark. Also on the political front, double departure for Sunak. The exit of 2 more ministers forces him into a mini reshuffle just before Easter.
The Duke of Sussex has been dragged into the Diddy lawsuit. Prince Harry's been named in the rap star's legal proceedings, alleging that Sean Diddy Coombs used his name to give his sex trafficking parties legitimacy.
Wales failed to secure a place at Euro 2024 after a heartbreaking loss in their playoff final against Poland last night.
And are we being shortchanged in a new Easter egg shrinkflation? Some Easter eggs are costing 50% more this year, whilst others are smaller.
Hello there. We've got heavy rain and showers in the forecast today, but some sunshine too. Find out all the weather details coming up in the programme soon.
Home Office sources have said churches run the risk of undermining the integrity of the asylum system after it was revealed that chemical attacker Abdul Azadi was allowed to stay in the UK by a judge who accepted he was a Christian convert, despite concerns that he also was a sex offender and a liar.
Immigration files that have now been published by the Home Office show that Azadi was granted asylum after his application was backed by a Baptist church minister.
Well, let's go to our Home and Security editor, Mark White. Mark, tell us more.
Well, Abdul Azadi came to the UK in the back of a lorry 8 years ago, and after repeated applications for asylum, he was turned down not once but twice by the Home Office. He was also a convicted sex offender during his time here in the UK for a sex attack, a sex assault, and also for indecent exposure. But during that time, he converted to Christianity. He got the help of a Baptist minister, Reverend Roy Merrin, from the Grange Road Baptist Church in Jarrow near Newcastle, to testify on his behalf when this appeal was put before an immigration judge at a hearing in Newcastle in 2020, and that judge decided on the strength of the evidence that was put down by this now retired reverend that he would indeed grant Azadi asylum. Now, this followed the fact, as I say, not just that the Home Office had carefully considered not once but twice the asylum applications and turned them down, but also the Baptist Church themselves, on hearing that Azadi had convictions for sexual offences, put in safeguarding procedures to ensure that he wouldn't be alone and unaccompanied when he was in the church itself. So they had some serious concerns. Despite that, this minister went into bat for Azadi, attending multiple hearings and testifying on his behalf that he was sincere, that he had converted to Christianity and that his life would be in danger. And in backing up that particular claim, they had various photographs showing Azadi who was being baptised and also handing out Christian leaflets in the local community around Jarrow as well. And the judge was persuaded by that, and he was persuaded by that despite the fact that Azadi had been shown to be a liar on multiple occasions. He'd claimed, for instance, that his brother had been shot and killed in Afghanistan, only to change that in later evidence to having been killed in a bomb attack. He'd originally claimed that he was a Shia Muslim, only to later say he was, in fact, a Sunni Muslim. He claimed that his family would be in danger because of his conversion to Christianity, but failed to give any indication as to how his family would ever have known that he had converted to Christianity in the first place. So a lot of really serious and remaining unanswered questions in this particular case. But I think from the Home Office's point of view, it highlights a real concern of people, do-gooders, they would suggest, who are in a position of trust and authority in the community, who are going into bat for asylum seekers to ensure that despite the Home Office turning down applications at appeal before an independent judge, these people can have real sway on whether someone gets to remain in the country.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much indeed. And on the subject of the church, Eileen, good morning, Eileen, and so many of you having so much to say on this. The church, Eileen says, should not be allowed to be involved in migration issues. They should be looking after their own flock, the flock that is at their local church, instead of worrying about other things. It is a complicated situation.
All religions are a menace. Religion has been responsible for more wars and bloodshed than any other single cause throughout history. And Valerie says, I would be interested to know how many asylum seekers would convert to Christianity after they've been given leave to remain, exactly questioning whether their motives to find Jesus is to do with staying in the country.
Let's talk about the NHS now. Satisfaction with it has fallen to a record low. Only 1 in 4 of you saying you are satisfied with the service you are getting.
These are the findings in the annual report by the think tanks, the King's Fund and the Nuffield Trust. They found public confidence in the health service is at its lowest since polling began in 1983. And they said the public felt like they were in a toxic relationship with the NHS.
Our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper. Sophie joins us now to tell us more. Good morning, Sophie.
Very good morning to you both. Well, this isn't anything new, unfortunately. Public satisfaction in the NHS has been in the decline for some years now. However, you are absolutely right in saying that this is the lowest level it has ever reached since records began. Now, this data coming from the British Social Attitudes poll, where they asked people if they were satisfied or not, and as you say, less than a quarter of the people they asked said they were happy with the service they have been receiving, and that is 5 percentage points down from the previous year. So not only is this decline happening, this decline is happening rapidly. Now, that's not to say that people are not in support of the idea of the NHS. 91% of people said they still believe the NHS should exist as a free service, and 82% of people said they still believe that it should be paid for by the taxpayer. However, when we look at this data today showing that less than a quarter of people are happy, it goes to show that people are not happy with what their money is paying for. The top 3 things that people had gripes about: 71% said they were unhappy with waiting times for appointments, whether that be with their GP or at the hospital itself. Second up, 54% of people said they were unhappy with the number of staff shortages. And then in third place, 47% of people said that the government were not spending enough money on the NHS. I'm here in Manchester this morning, and I've been speaking to people on the street, asking them whether or not they're satisfied with the NHS, and this is what they had to tell me. New data come out today which shows that public satisfaction in the NHS is at its all-time lowest. Would you say you are satisfied with the service the NHS provides?
Once you get there, yes, but it's actually getting through the GP to getting to the NHS. I think that a lot of money is wasted talking to people that work or have worked within the NHS. The amount of waste is phenomenal. So I think they need to look at the management. It needs to start at the top. So the government could throw more money at it, whichever government's in power. Yes, I agree. However, are they spending that money wisely?
Thankfully, I don't use it a lot, but I'm currently on the waiting list for one of the hospitals in Manchester for 12, and it's a 52-week wait. So no, because sometimes your illness goes while you're waiting for the for the appointment.
We should make it like a more accessible thing.
I am satisfied because there's a lot of hard-working nurses, doctors, surgeons. Like, you see the care they give you. And plus, I had 3 of my children here, and the care I received was perfect.
A bit of a mixed bag there. Clearly that lady at the end, she's part of that 24% of people who are satisfied, but there are that 76% who are still saying they're not happy with the service they have been receiving. Now, that third point there, it's in terms of the government, that is going to be really crucial as we approach this general election year to see how the parties use the NHS as that bargaining chip to try and gain people's votes.
Sophie, thanks very much indeed. It's time now for our spring giveaway. We've got just a couple of days to get involved. It closes on Good Friday. Lots on offer. There are spring gadgets, garden gadgets. There's a shopping spree, and how much cash?
The big thing is you can keep all the rest of it if you want.
Well,
12,345 quid. I'd have a go if it was allowed, but I'm not.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Right, so Isabel's got.
You're not going to believe what's just happened. I've just seen Bev and I heard her going, I can't believe it, in the wings. Guess what's happened?
Same dresses. Now, this is not anything that we plan. I'm very sorry. I was getting ready this morning, getting the kids ready for school.
I think yours is a slightly different, darker colour.
I did have you on the radio, both of you. I'm sorry I didn't turn the TV on this morning. I should have checked, shouldn't I?
And Eamon's got a very nice
purple tie.
Yes, yes.
It's Easter, Eamonn. It's the colour.
It is the colour.
What, the colour of Cadbury?
No, it's what all priests will be wearing, you heathen.
Until Easter Sunday.
I'd like to see you've got some chocolate there, though. That's
have some. So what have you got for us?
We've got an amazing show this morning. We've got an exclusive interview with Esther Jai, the mother of the deceased poor young trans girl, Brianna. She says some very interesting things about tech and phones and the impact that has on their life. We've got Fergal Sharkey talking about the waters. We've got the actor James Murray talking about the waters. He's a big campaigner.
And Mr. Motivator, remember him? He's still going strong. He's talking about why you can say to someone, you're fat.
Oh.
Is he coming in?
Yeah.
You were about to eat that chocolate.
I reached for the chocolate at that point. They do look nice.
Yeah, so that's quite lively.
Yeah, and of course this Abdul Azidi scandal as well. How big a problem is this if people are undergoing a fake conversion?
The church has to hang its head in shame over this man, because he should have been deported, but they kept going into this tribunal.
Yeah, but what church? There's so many bits of church. This is the Baptist church.
We had the Catholic Church on this morning saying it takes 9 months for us to accept somebody as a convert, whereas this Baptist did it in a shopping centre.
Bums on seats.
And talking of Christianity, gesture eggs as opposed to Easter eggs.
What's a gesture egg?
Well, that's how they're being sold in one particular shop. We're sending somebody down there. Gesture, not an Easter egg, because it's secular rather than religious.
If this represented any other religion bar Christianity,
there'd be an outcry.
We would be, oh, this is wonderful and this is tradition and this is culture and we should pay respect to all of this. But if you're Christian, nobody pays you.
Although there's nothing particularly Christian about an egg.
No, it's a symbol of resurrection, of new life.
Yes,
right, okay.
That's what it's about.
My M&S chocolate kitten
that
I bought.
No, the egg is very traditional, and in Orthodox they painted the eggs too.
Yes.
So no, it's a very traditional part of Easter.
All right, fair enough.
Isn't it about the rock that was rolled from the Anyway,
Yeah.
bolder, thank
It
you.
did well, but it's new life. New life.
It's new life. That's
After Sunday school for you, Beth.
Quite. We'll be educating ourselves on why Easter matters. It does matter.
It does,
It's important. I love Easter.
Bigger than Christmas in the Christian calendar.
In my house, it sometimes
We
is.
love
well.
Angela Levin. She's going to be here after the break talking all
Thanks,
things
guys.
royal that are making the news. Prince Harry's on the front page of The Sun today. Find out why after this.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Can the Church of England not spend their money as they wish?
The Church of England can do amazing things for this country and for the world, and I'm not sure why it's chosen to focus on this specific issue. You know, one of the causes that I've always thought the Church was very good at were things called almshouses, which were basically houses that would be built on church estates for the needy. Not only did they want to spend £100 million on this fund, that they wanted to spend £1 billion on reparations as well. Well, why not spend 100 million or £1 billion on a new generation of almshouses, as opposed to just helping one group of people, black British people? Why not just help all people in need?
Alex?
Well, I just don't understand what the Church of England is trying to do. It's on its deathbed.
Congregations have reduced. I mean, deathbed is maybe a little...
Look, if we look over 20 years, it's dramatically lower than it used to be. And a lot of criticism from actual Christians come from the values that the Church of England are now propagating. And Justin Welby has a lot to answer for, because, you know, not only are we seeing in the news there's mass conversion of illegal immigrants to a gay mass system in the UK, but now we're seeing them spending money... And as Albie actually pointed out correctly, in a way that doesn't really benefit broader society, it benefits a very small group of people. So I just don't know where it's going to end. This committee has also said £1 billion's not enough. It's 100 million, sorry.
Church commissioners are now hoping for a target of £1 billion.
I mean, it's woke nonsense, isn't it?
You could make the argument that this is charity. Justin Welby's job is to be a virtue signaller, is it not?
Charity discriminate? I mean, that's what he's saying. We're only going to give this to people from a specific skin colour or background. I don't think that's very Christian of them.
Prince Harry all over the front of the Sun newspaper this morning. You, like me, might have skipped a beat when you saw the headline, Harry named in P. Diddy sex traffic case. But Angela Levin is here for once, perhaps, to stick up for the Prince, because he's not done anything wrong.
No, he hasn't. I mean, I'm quite ready to give him a telling off, because I wrote his biography. I feel I'm entitled to do that. But this is not really a story. He went to listen to a concert put on for his late mother. If she'd been alive, she would have been 36 years old. And he went there and enjoyed the concert. But he had never gone to anything else. He'd never gone to a party, not met a man again. And so I think it's really unfair to actually attack him.
To see his name in a headline linked to a sex traffic case is alarming.
Prince Andrew, don't you? That's the thing you do. And I think it's really not fair. So I'm sticking up for him.
Well, there you go. You and Meghan on the same side. You could talk about Prince Phillip for us this morning, the late Prince Phillip. He'd been remembered in an interesting way.
Yes, very interesting way. They'd put a statue without permission up in Cambridge to celebrate 35 years of him working as a senior person at Cambridge.
Sounds good. So far, so good.
The council have said that it's the worst piece of art they've ever seen. And if you look at it, he doesn't have a face. You wouldn't recognise him. He just doesn't have a face. Now, they're going to take it down. It went up in 2014.
Well, why has it taken 10 years? If it hadn't got permission, why has it been allowed standing?
Because you cannot listen until they say, you now must take it down. You don't have to listen in the first round. It's a bit like boxing.
Well, the fact that it doesn't have a face, I mean... Perhaps as long as you read a plaque or something that tells you it's paying tribute to his contribution to the royal family, does it need to be torn down?
Well, they decided they wanted to do this. It cost £115,000 to put up in bronze. But the artist... They think they know who it is, but he's denied it. So no one will say that they actually did it. They got the money and left it. But I've never seen anything so hideous myself, actually. Oh, it's a great shame.
So will there be no statue to replace it?
Well, no, not at the moment. But I think that people should say that he should have a statue. A remarkable man, highly respected.
In what ways? I mean, I always thought he looked the part, he acted the part. But he was very indiscreet off camera.
And on camera sometimes.
And on camera.
I miss it.
I think some of that was left over from his very, very difficult childhood, and he had to make an impact wherever he went.
His mother was fascinating.
Yeah.
Tell us about a nun. She was a nun. She became a nun, and there were big questions with her mental state of mind.
Mental health. Because in that time, I think if somebody was so devout as she wanted to be, and so careful of what she said and what she did, they would put them into a place where they put people with very, very bad mental health issues. And it took a long time to get her out. Now, when you look at it, you think that's absolutely appalling. But Prince Philip, he was just sleeping on couches and members of the family. He had no family at all. His father wasn't interested in and went off. So the fact that he had an incredibly satisfying life with the Queen is extraordinary.
Yeah. I was thinking of him at the weekend. I was on a walk with the family and we saw a group of schoolgirls out with their backpacks and their compasses and their maps, clearly embarking on their Duke of Edinburgh Awards. Hadn't slept all weekend, looking pretty frazzled, has to be said. But that legacy carries on. Children up and down the country, out and about, enjoying British countryside, testing themselves to the limit, things he really believed in. And that goes on, after he's gone.
Yes, I mean, it is brilliant. He's actually made a life for so many young people who come from poor homes, who actually don't get involved in groups and learn how to work together with people. And now, of course, the new Duke of Edinburgh is in charge of that, and it's doing very well. And I think for children to learn sport and to learn how to work together and the importance of actually being healthy, it's all from him.
Where did he crash his Range Rover? Sandringham? No?
Yes.
Yeah. So he said to me, a lot of people talking about this climate warming, this climate change thing going on. Bloody marvellous. And I says, well, why, sir? Well, I say, the grouse we're getting at Sandringham, so much more grouse as a result.
Typical him, I think.
That's him.
He's a wonderful reader, and this is one of the things that aligned him with Queen Camilla, because he didn't like her, he wouldn't have anything to do with her at the beginning, because she wasn't a virgin.
Yes. He was a big fan of Diana's, wasn't he, as well?
Yes. And they started to talk about books, and that really broke the difference between him not having a relationship with her and them getting on extremely well, because they both loved reading such a lot.
You know, you can tell you're an author, Angela, because you've been a really good flag bearer today for books and for reading. It's great to hear. It's sort of not very trendy anymore, but
a good weekend to think about it.
It's a good weekend for reading.
Yeah.
You can always get our hands on your Prince Harry biography if we want.
Yeah, or Camilla's.
Or Camilla's, of
or
course.
the one about Diana's family.
Good.
Or Andrew. William.
But unfortunately, we've got to say goodbye to you now, Angela. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely talking to you throughout the programme this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's it from us for this week. Have a wonderful Easter, whatever you're doing. Breakfast will be back, though, tomorrow from 6 o'clock. And up next, it is, of course, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev in our matching.
Whatever you're doing for the rest of the day, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Low pressure continues to dominate the weather pattern through today. Further spells of rain, heavy showers, blustery winds over the next few days as well. So looking at the bigger picture, we do have rain across northern and western parts of the UK this morning. Some localised flooding possible across parts of Northern Ireland in particular as the heavy rain from overnight slowly clears. Some bright spells developing as we move into the afternoon, but this will trigger some heavy thundery showers with some hail possible. With brisk southerly winds, it will feel quite chilly in the south and the west. Here, highs of 11 or 12 Celsius. In any brighter skies, we could see highs of 13 or 14 in a few sheltered spots. Into the evening time, further heavy showers push northwards across the country, these merging into some longer spells of rain. And then during the early hours, this batch of wet weather moves into central southern parts of England and Wales. Could be heavy at times, so a cloudy night here, but clearing skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. A touch of frost and some fog here as temperatures fall close to, if not below, freezing. So a north-south split to start Thursday. Wet and windy weather across parts of Wales and England. Brighter skies Northern Ireland and Scotland, and then these weather systems slowly push northwards as we go through the day. Further wet and windy weather pushing into central southern England. Gales along some southern coasts at times too. The best of the drier weather holding on across northern Scotland, and for most temperatures around 12 or 13. See you soon.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join me, Camilla, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Is the brand of toothpaste super important here, or is it more about the toothbrush? Because I was told a long time ago by my dentist, electric toothbrush, Pip, that is the way to go.
You're exactly right. I mean, the action of mechanically removing plaque, so using a brush, is much more effective than the brand of toothpaste itself. But in terms of the ingredient in toothpaste that we're looking for, it's something called fluoride. And fluoride is essential to help remineralize and strengthen our teeth. It's really important to use a toothpaste with fluoride. And in terms of brushing, using an electric toothbrush is just much easier. You know, you're brushing your teeth first thing in the morning,